Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's the 25th of November of 2020. I'm Nick, here with Chris.
That's me.
It's a Chris, and it's a Nick.
Mm-hmm. Contrary to popular belief.
Yes.
I've heard some rumors out there.
Multiple sources. It's not just you twice.
Mm-hmm.
No.
There are, in fact, two of us.
And it keeps happening. But anyway. So it's the last Wednesday before the end of November, which means that it is also the day before Thanksgiving, which is only really relevant in the United States, I think. I'm sure that this isn't going to affect anyone. It's already too late, but I encourage you all to not travel to see family this year, please. But if you've already traveled, I'm sure you're already there. It's too late for me to change your mind, but I felt obligated to say it. So, you doing anything weird for Thanksgiving this year, man?
My sister lives nearby, so we're just gonna see her and hang out there, and that's pretty much it. So, and then I found out I have to work Black Friday, so
Cool.
I'll be going into quarantine after that because I just assume I'm gonna catch COVID. If I'm going to, that's gonna be the time it's gonna happen. So,
yeah, God, I can't. That didn't even occur to me. But yeah, like even more than just like everyone flying around the country, just spread it around everywhere. Then yeah, everyone dogpiling into a store. Jeez.
The thing is that so it's the knowledge of like, well, some people aren't going to do it, but the people who are also 100% going to be the people who don't follow like guidelines or anything like that.
It's all fake. Come on, I'm going to spray my saliva in your face because it's so fake. Yeah. So, I've got to do grocery shopping Friday morning, but that's probably not going to be any different. But
that shouldn't be too bad. Unless grocery stores have crazy deals where they're like, buy this can of flour for 30 cents instead of 79 cents. And people are just like beating each other over the head to get to it.
So yeah, I guess that just a blanket statement to you all. I hope that you are all able to do something in order to celebrate with the people that matter to you. But please try to do so safely. I personally am setting up a Discord call with my immediate family. We're just going to have kind of like a virtual dinner together, basically. I mean, they only live like 30 minutes away from me, but I was like, no, like, as I haven't seen them this entire time, so it's like that would be a bad first point of contact. Be like, yay, it's nice to see you.
Yeah. Nah, I get that.
But hopefully things are going to be getting better, which is kind of a major theme of the manga we're talking about this week, which is Genkaku Picasso. This is an odd.
I need to preface this by saying I recognize fully and completely ahead of time that Picasso is not Italian. I know firmly he's Spanish. I went to his museum when I was in Spain, but I will not be able to say it without being like, Genkaku Picasso! Like, I don't know why. It's the cadence is perfect for the Italian.
Italian name.
It's me, Mario Picasso.
It was not. Because if you remember his first name was Pablo, then it's like, I guess
it's a lot easier, but
no, it's just like Picasso. It is the most Italian name. Like, if I know, you know.
Every time I was like reading it, and then suddenly the characters started having Italian accents, and
I don't want to hang out with the people. I just want to sit in the bathroom.
Oh no, me mom, mama, my arm is melting. Like a big pool of a gabagool.
Dude, that Picasso would have never made any friends. Either that or he would have made friends immediately. And they would
Yeah.
just be like, oh, that Picasso, he's so eccentric and Italian.
He's so foreign. I gotta hang out with him.
So he's talking to his dead friend. Isn't that charming?
Yeah.
So this is an odd series that ran in Jump Square in 2009 to 2010.
Mhm.
It's a shonen series, but it is a little bit odd. But if it had not been a Jump Square series, I'm sure it would have been way fucking weirder because of the subject matter and the stuff that happens in it. So our main character is called Picasso. His name isn't actually Picasso. His name is Hikari, but he like wrote his name strangely one day in a way that made his name basically look like Picasso. And also, he's constantly drawing all the time because he's an artist. So someone called his friend Chiaki called him Picasso. Stuck with him since. He is this very kind of introverted sort of person. Just cares nothing for nothing except just drawing and getting better at drawing. And he has only one friend at the start of the series, which is this girl named Chiaki, who is the only one who's really able to tolerate his attitude, and the only one who is stubborn enough to stick by him when he's just trying to go off by himself and draw. And so they go to down by this one river because Picasso set up this club which basically just would allow him to go sit outside and draw things that he sees without anyone bothering him. He set that up as a club, and she's the only other member, and she just kind of sits there and hangs out with him. And in a in a turn of events that the manga never really pauses to examine how batshit insane it is, a freak flyover helicopter crashes on them.
It really does come out of nowhere and is never addressed by anyone really to be like, that was fucking bananas, right? Like a helicopter just landed on two kids.
So Chiaki dies basically instantly. Paramedics are able to save Picasso, and he suffers like no permanent physical injuries from it. Like he's virtually unscathed. By some freak occurrence, this helicopter lands on these two kids. One of them dies. The other one is almost completely unharmed. But what happened just before that is Chiaki and Picasso were having one of those conversations that, of course, it's a big thing in manga where like the last conversation you have with someone happens to also be the most meaningful conversation you've ever had with them, and it's going to define what you do in the series after they die.
Mhm.
But so Chiaki basically said, hey, we should continue the Riverside Club even after we graduate. Let's keep on hanging out together and stuff like that. And she also like draws something on a piece of paper and sticks it in Picasso's blazer pocket and is like, just look, because she had challenged him to draw her heart basically. And he's like, I can't draw something that I can't see. And she's like, isn't that part of being an artist? Which she makes a goddamn good point.
At the same,
what kind of artist are you?
but at the same time, imagine that weird ass request, like draw my heart. Like, I don't know, bitch. That's kind of personal and sounds fucking complicated. And there's no way it can go that you won't be angry in some. Like, there's nothing I'm gonna draw that you're not gonna feel offended by.
Why aren't the bunnies purple?
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, I drew a bunch of trees because you like hanging out in the forest. She's like, oh, because I'm just boring, huh? I just go to the forest all the time. Like, bitch, I don't know what you want.
And a lot of people do treat Picasso that way, just like assuming the worst of him. But anyway, she draws something and basically sticks it by Picasso's heart and tells him to look at it later. The helicopter accident occurs. She dies. He forgets all about it. But then he hears something and he like reaches into his blazer pocket and he pulls out this tiny cheruby sort of looking version of Chiaki, who only he can see. Basically, she's like haunting him. And also, there is this rot that appears on his arm. And Chiaki says, what happened was when I died, I prayed that you would be saved and that you wouldn't be alone. And so, in order for this rot to not happen, because you're basically dead, and so in order for you to not rot away and pass on to the next life, you have to help people. It's 100 good deeds of
Eddie McDowd.
Yeah. So he's
Why can't that show be referenced all the time? It really, anytime. I feel like that needs to be the landmark thing to go to if there's a series about it. I know My Name is Earl is more culturally relevant, but 100 Deeds of Eddie McDowd is so much more close to my heart.
I don't know, Chris. Whenever people are talking about the golden age of Cartoon Network with the cartoons and stuff, it never gets brought up? Sheep in the Big City. That was a weird goddamn show.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get brought up for good reason. It wasn't very good. There's a lot of bad cartoons people don't bring up.
That's true. Whatever happened to Robot Jones, Chris? It wasn't very good. That's what happened. So he has to do good deeds for people. He has to help them out with their problems. Fortunately, as part of this whole wrapped package, he is now able to see whenever people are going through troubling times as like this black aura that surrounds them. And whenever he sees it, he is compelled by this urge to sketch something out, and it allows him to draw out their hearts and give him some idea of what their problems are. He's very, very bad at interpreting these.
Yes.
And what inevitably happens is the second stage of this occurs where he ends up diving into the drawing that he has made, which allows him to dive into their heart and help to manipulate that person in a way that helps them to work through their problems and come out of it better. Kind of amusingly, what everyone else sees when Picasso does this is he slams his head into his sketch somehow and then just falls unconscious until the problem is solved, and then he wakes up. So like it's a recurring thing where people are just like, oh, he passed out again, and then you take him to the nurse's office.
To the point where the nurse is like, you didn't bump your head into your notebook again, dude. Like, you need to stop doing that. You're just like, what do they think his notebook is made out of? Or is this boy's like skull just like paper thin?
The unspoken, for the most part, thing that is going on is I think that everyone basically concludes that he's going through some stuff because of the trauma of the accident, which we'll talk about that in a bit. But for something that has such a huge, it's the whole setup of the series, it's something that doesn't really get a whole lot of attention until the very end. But anyway, so that's the setup, and it's a very episodic series. Every time that he helps out someone by diving into this drawing he makes of their heart, usually that whole thing is resolved in one chapter. Sometimes it takes 2 chapters.
They get longer as they go on. Like they'll start taking up one or two.
But the whole thing's only like 3 volumes long, so it's a pretty short series.
I want to say this off the front.
Go ahead.
So I will say that I do enjoy this series. I will say the quality. So it's almost a lot of these are very short stories in a way, kind of connected to each other by Picasso himself and that sort of narrative of him helping people. And characters do continue to show up throughout the story. But like each individual story generally involves a new character and having to help them almost exclusively throughout. I think there's only one character who ever repeats. The starting stories are significantly worse than the latter stories. Like the first 4 are something where you're like, I mean, I guess. Like if you kind of squint, you're like, I guess this all added up, but this doesn't feel satisfying at all.
Why did you want to kill someone? Because my dad won't pay for me to go to college. Well, what's the real problem? Oh, he doesn't actually have the money. Oh,
yeah. So like for context, that's the first story. And the way it always starts is Picasso draws this image of this person's heart or what he saw in this vision. And everything is meant to be interpreted through that image. And these are very imposing images. Like this one's a giant wall of money and this imposing figure in the sky clutching a bag and this haggard, weathered bird. And you stand, you're like, what is this all about? And admittedly, I'm actually kind of glad it wasn't just the most simple story of like he has a bad relationship with his dad, and also kind of fits into like the larger story of like everyone can be good people, which kind of is the thesis of the story. Um, so you're wondering like, what do all these things mean? And they dig into it. You find I can't remember any character from this story's name, unfortunately. Um, but Sugiura, I think was his name.
Sugiura,
Sugiura.
yes.
You find out
And
he's
Akane is the main girl who
yeah.
sticks around them too.
So like you find out he is starting to spiral real hard. Like they confront him and he kind of pushes it off like no, it's nothing as crazy as that. But he's spiraling far enough that he's willing to kill a man. And you're like, what is the crux of all this? And he's like, my dad won't pay for college. And then Picasso's just like, but wait, I saw a carousel in your dream. That means your father loves you. And actually, I've confronted him, and he says he actually has always loved you, and he's just been ashamed because he doesn't have the money. And you're like, well, that's like a clean and easy way to wrap it up, but this doesn't really feel satisfying for all like the pompous buildup of the imagery and everything like that.
There's also a really weird one, like the second one is not as
no. The second one's the worst.
It's really weird.
The second one is the fucking.
Why won't she eat vegetables? Cause her bunny dies.
The whole fucking thing is a picture of a baby with a rabbit full of holes, and the whole thing's like, oh, Akane is this model at our school, and she's fainting suddenly, and it could have been this narrative on like what the entertainment industry often drives people to do through overwork and exhaustion, you as a product versus you as a person. That's not it at all. They're like, she doesn't eat vegetables because when she was a baby, her rabbit died. And fucking 5-month-old baby Akane was like, vegetables bad forever. And I'm like, that fucking baby didn't have any goddamn permeance. That baby doesn't remember shit about this fucking rabbit.
I remember when my rabbit died, so I hate vegetables.
That was the one I was like, all right, you can eat a big fucking rotten dick if you're going to try to sell me on this shit. This fucking
After
baby
that point,
memory.
After that point, things tend to get
Yes.
more in the realm of like the problems you expect high schoolers to encounter. Some of them are kind of lame, but they're lame in that, oh, you're just a teenager and you think that this matters kind of way.
Yeah.
So when I kind of was like, all right, if I go back into that mindset, I can see why this would have kind of upended their mindset and why they would be going through things. Akane's sister, for example, her big thing that she is going through is that she has, because Akane is like, you know, this glamour model, and she's the one that everyone like that kind of feels this inferiority complex, and so she kind of throws herself into being this alternative girl because she discovers this celebrity who is this singer who does all these dark lyrics and stuff like that. She models her entire appearance after her, and when she's going through dark times, she's basically only speaking in lyrics from this woman's songs. But the reason that she's going through hard times is because she happened to read a women's magazine interview with that singer, where it turns out that whole thing was just like her image. That's not who she really is. She's actually a very normal person who's happy with her life and like with starting a family and stuff like that. And so Kanda's like, no, how can this be? I thought that she was so different. And that's what throws her out of whack and stuff. And so it's like, you can look at it from one perspective and think, fucking get over it. But you can look at it from another and think, she's like 15 years old. And so everything that she's modeled this part of her life after has suddenly been thrown in out of whack. And it's a relatable kind of thing too, which is my idol is not who I thought that they actually were. But honey, just be glad that that interview was about what a nice and level-headed person she is.
It must be so awful to find out someone you idolized as a kid and a teenager grew up to be a better person than you thought.
It turns out she doesn't step on the skulls of her enemies. What the fuck?
Turns out she hasn't said the N-word several times in the past. Like, oh man. Turns out she didn't cuck her best friend and complain about getting too gassy from fish. This is specifically Hulk Hogan now I'm referring to.
Okay. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? There are some really weird ones that happen,
Mm.
even in the later ones. Like there's one where like a girl stops liking Disney World because she didn't get to be like in the Disney Idol group, basically,
Yeah.
which was like a little weird. But that's about dreams, being
Being,
broken
yeah.
and stuff like that. There's one about a guy who basically has a girlfriend in Canada.
Yeah, that one's pretty rough.
It's
That one's, oh boy,
just like
that's awkward.
and like the lengths that he goes to is just like, because it's not that he just makes up a girl, he finds a real girl's blog online and acts like the stuff that she's writing about is stuff that happened to his real life girlfriend, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable.
And his friend who he's lied to is just like, so I looked up this blog and I found this picture you show me of your girlfriend. But over the course of the series, Picasso dives into some stuff. Chiaki is usually diving in there with him. And honestly, half the time the series forgets that Chiaki exists, but the other half of the time Chiaki does literally all the work while Picasso just stands there and does nothing after he's drawn the image and gone in there. They solve some people's problems. And then uh, that's kind of it until like
Yeah.
the end of the series. When basically it kind of makes you wonder how much of it was real while never actually questioning if any of it was real. Um, I will say, so with the setup that it had from the beginning of, okay, this guy's best friend has died in a tragic accident that also involved him. And he has this experience where only he can see these things, and he's diving into people's minds in order to train them and stuff like that. So I'm like, is this like a Jacob's ladder thing? Is he like hallucinating all of this just
Yeah.
before he dies? Or is this all a coping mechanism? Is he just like making all this stuff up in his head? And the answer is definitely not the first one, but maybe the second one. But also, he did definitely go inside people's minds and
Yes.
fix their problems.
Yeah, there tries to be a little bit of a vagueness to it, but I think there's too much notion there to suggest everything actually happened, and also the entire point of the story is that all these people are still his friends, and that you
Mm-hmm.
can still make friends and build this kind of community around you. So the idea that he wouldn't have touched all these people's lives in their way kind of seems to suggest that he had to have, or else
Yeah.
you'd be like, so he just it screamed randomly, incomprehensibly for the past like 2 months, and it still attained all these friendships the same way. But no, I mean, it is definitely a true thing too that he doesn't actually fix most of the people. Like, there's two that he outright does like nothing for whatsoever. But it's still kind of a charming story to all of it, and I do like that the cast kind of sticks together. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately the main two characters, but especially when they get to the one guy at the end. Oh God, I want to say his name's Yato,
Yeah.
the Ashura guy. That one has pretty much every character show up at some point during that story, and that I think helped to make that one of maybe my favorite of all of them. And I think so many of them are really, really good stories. As you said, it's a lot of it can be kind of like over exaggerated stuff that only a teenager would care about, but the manga uses great imagery to create that tension regardless. The idea of two friends who have, kind of a one-sided romance between them that's starting to not only threaten to tear apart their friendship, but also push the one member into basically making a very bad mistake
Mm-hmm.
rebound is
Yeah.
emblematic of a character drowning in a raging ocean. And that sort of stuff captures the tone they're going for in a very profound and impactful way where you're like, all right, this is something that probably only 17-year-olds are really going to be. Well, 17-year-olds really should be the only ones dealing
They
with it.
should be,
They
but
should
they're
be.
not.
But it's still one of those things where, like, because of all the tension drawn to Picasso and the situation that he and Chiaki, what's her name?
Chiaki is the girl who dies.
Chiaki.
Yes.
Yeah, that he and Chiaki are in help to really sell all of them. So I think those are really good ways to get that narrative across.
So should we talk about the like the story that like
I
is
will
very
I will mention one other character before I guess we get to the end.
no, not that one. I'm talking about the trans character.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Yes.
there's what felt to me like a pretty respectful trans character storyline. A trans woman who is dealing with a lot of issues, and her mental palace is like this suit of armor fighting against a legion. And there's a lot of Joan of Arc references to it, and that is ultimately what the character comes to be known by. And is one of the better stories in it too.
Yeah.
I will say this though, you will have to get used. I do not think it is malicious, but the story does, and particularly the manga itself, does dead name her and misgender her in like all supplementary stuff beyond that. I don't think it's malicious, but it is a really, really bad misstep after what was otherwise a very, uh, welcoming and embracing kind of story. Because I mean, I don't know if like it's such a happy fucking ending that like the
Yes.
entire class is there at the
Yes.
end to be like, whoa, and you're just like, wow, this is fucking great. And then like you open the next chapter thing and it's like so and so. You're like, oh man, I don't what that's not their name.
That's not her name.
I
What are you
don't know
doing?
why that's don't use that.
Like I did appreciate the general like the way that character is treated going forward with them but from that point. And it did kind of seem to be, I think, partially deliberate that like the girls seem to get it more than the guys do. Because the guys are like, don't they realize that she's a dude? And the girls are just like, hey, let's go to the bathroom together and hang out. Oh, you're so pretty. Hey, are there any boys you like and stuff like that? They just wholeheartedly embrace who she is, and the guys are kind of like nice to her, but they clearly don't get it. Like, and so it does kind of come across like there's the best of intents there, and it is for a series that was written at the end of the 20 aughts in Japan, very sympathetic and I think very positive story about a trans character, because there's so many characters out there where it's just like they can be like an ultimately sympathetic character, but there's like a lot of jokes about them about how they make like
Yeah.
people uncomfortable, and that's like the point. So
There's still a little bit of that.
Not completely free of that.
There's still a little bit of that, but there's stuff that I do appreciate. I appreciate that. I always forget based off of the fucking, because we've always heard it as Joan of Arc, if it's Joan or Jean.
I believe it's Jean.
Jean. Yeah. So like Jean is suggested to have a crush on Picasso, and at no point
Yes.
is that ever like made a joke or
No.
considered to be anything that would be weird or anything like that. So I do appreciate that they present that out there, and depending on some ways you can interpret it, she's the only character remaining at the end who probably still has a crush on him that's still alive. So maybe that goes out well for their futures. But
I think that Akane still has a crush on him, but she just kind
yeah,
of like it's just like, oh, I guess he was in love with that dead girl, and I'm not going to compete with that.
I think she's also starting to realize she was manipulated a little bit, not
Yeah,
intentionally.
I guess that makes sense why I suddenly had the hots for him.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, but yeah, there are some missteps. So fair warning on that.
And I think that that's kind of like ultimately how I feel about the series in general, which is mostly positive, but take recognition of the fact that it's not a perfect series, and it kind of wears the imperfections on its sleeve. As you're going through it, you're kind of like, this could have been a little bit better. If it had kind of really gone a little bit further, it could have been better. If it had focused on certain details more, it could have been better. But for a simple like story about everything is resolved by the time the credits roll, 24 minutes in kind of series, it is ultimately positive. So then the series reaches its conclusion, and um, so Picasso draws his own heart basically and dives into that,
Mhm.
and it's very powerful at points because ultimately what happens is he has to re-experience the moments of his near death because he's been, avoiding the fact that Chiaki's gone. Like
Yes.
this little angel girl that's been following around, like that's kind of like the last remnants of her, and she can't stick around forever. And so he has to re-experience the moment of her death in order to move beyond it. And I think that that is a very powerful thing. And I think
Mhm.
that, and like certain parts of it where he's like, because he basically like in his vision, he is literally inside his own head and peering out through his own eye hole, a tiny version of himself. And so he's looking over at her corpse when he's being attended to by paramedics and stuff. And that's like heartbreaking when he's just like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to see this. I don't want to deal with this. And he's just so upset about it still. Um, I do really wish, however, that there had been more attention paid to the fact that he was clearly in denial and in his grief for her prior to that moment. Because the fact that he has a little angel Chiaki following him around and stuff means that he never has to address that. And that's never like the point of her being there. Like she's just kind of just there too
Yes.
a lot of the time.
It's generally because when you look at it, you're like, all right. Obviously, from our reader's perspective, we're following Picasso's kind of vision of this, so we see all these interactions. So we get to see their silliness, but you also comprehend the fact that there is an outside world that does not see what they're seeing, and to them, it's all treated as a joke. Like, again, as you said, to them, they're probably all very sympathetic about this poor kid who was involved in an absurdly freak accident and lost the only person he cared about. So they're all kind of very accommodating with it. But as the reader, generally all these situations are kind of dealt with comedically. That
Hmm.
would ultimately be a situation where he's just sitting there holding up this piece of paper, being like, "Not now, Chiaki! I have things to do," and something like that. And you're just like, oh, the story's kind of dark and
Yeah.
sad when I think about it that way.
Yeah.
So I won't. Um, and so it is kind of interesting too that the end and the gut punch that Chiaki is just dead. There is no like happy ending beyond that for her. I mean,
Mhm.
there's the happiness of like, oh, Picasso has made all these friends, so she can kind of rest easy. Is a nice one, but throughout the story, everyone gets about as a 100% happy ending as humanly possible. Pretty much no relationship that's described is ever toxic and has to have somebody lose something. Several times, parents are the cause of these issues, and those are always dealt with. The main guy is still friends with his father, Yudo is, able to make amends with his mother. Everyone kind of comes
Mhm.
away in as happy a
Yeah.
place as possible. Like as mentioned, like the
Yeah.
entire
The girl whose dream was shattered because she was, rejected at the audition. She's like, I'm going to try again.
yeah,
And she just kind of, and it's like, yeah, that's nice that she picks herself up and stuff. But yeah, you're right.
yeah.
It's just like
No one has to deal with
sometimes,
anything rough outside
mhm,
of their intended story until you get to the end, and it's like, no, she's dead. She's just dead.
mhm,
You have to deal with the fact she's dead. And I kind of appreciate it because it does really make that realization hit harder. And there's a sense of dread as you get further and further along. You're like, I know she's dead, but I really like Chiaki a lot, and I really wish she could come back or something. But you do see
but
the whole
she can't.
message, yeah.
So
The whole message being that she's gone, but Picasso has this whole new Riverside friend club to hang out with now.
yeah, because despite the fact that he's a weirdo who was hallucinating conversations with this little girl, and he somehow did a form of brainwashing, technically,
Yeah. That's actually also one of my favorite scenes because like the big crux is like eventually his one friend confronts him on it, and
Sugio.
Picasso, yeah, and I'm just not going to try to pronounce it. I'm just going to call him friend, and you know who I'm talking about.
Mm.
Confronts him on it, and this is like the start of the final like chapter basically. And Picasso is like, "All right, you know what? I just have to come clean to him." And he's like, "Look, my body's rotting." And we see from his perspective that his friend does not see that. That's your like the big clue of like, okay, this is all in Picasso's head. And he eventually is just like, "Yeah, I know all these things because I've been going into memories." And his friend's rightfully like initially like, "That's fucked up. Like, I know you're not intending it to, but that is really fucked up." They're
Yeah,
just
you
in.
literally went inside my brain, saw my private thoughts, and then messed around with it. Like,
And in his particular thoughts, he knows that Picasso saw him very close to considering the murder of an innocent man just to get back at his father. So there's so
he,
much.
I mean, Picasso saw him having sex with the girl.
Yeah,
Like,
you're just like,
because he saw that memory.
yeah. It's definitely like a real rough kind of like, okay, I get why he's angry, and they piece it out, you know, very quickly after that. Everyone's like, look, I don't think he's intentionally trying to do this. Everything he's done has been to help us. But I do appreciate that there's a moment of him just being like, I don't know, that's kind of fucked up a little bit.
Um, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, everyone kind of concludes like, well, he wasn't like deliberately messing around with us, and he did help us out with a lot of bad stuff that we were going through. So it's time that we help him out. And it's this very like everyone goes around looking for him because he's gone missing, and they find him at the site of the accident, yeah, because they realize, oh, right, that's probably where he went. And ultimately, that's like the thing that saves him is that, you know, he's communicating with this memory or this uh, shadow, I guess, of Chiaki. And she tells him, look, you know, before this accident, you didn't have any other friends. And now look at all these people who are worried for you and who are here for you. And that's what kind of brings him out of it. And he actually cries over Chiaki for the first time, something that he didn't actually do when she died. And from there, you know, the grieving process can actually begin. And ultimately, he has all these friends now because he's a weirdo and he draws weird things that, and he apparently dove inside all their heads and stuff like that. But they like him just the same.
Yep.
And it's very nice. And it's a nice little series that is not perfect, and I it's weird because like there's potential for this to have been a lot better than it was, I feel like, and I'm a little bit bummed that it wasn't better. But that's just the main criticism I have of it is just like I liked it, but I wish I liked it a lot more. So
Yeah. I think I came away a little bit stronger on it. I actually, by the end of it, really did enjoy it, especially like by the time the final message kind of came around. I'm not gonna lie, it got me a little teary eyed. I
yeah,
definitely was like, you know, it is a very sweet story. And as I said, I started liking the stories more and more pretty much from the second volume on. I felt like they were all pretty strong after that. Maybe like the Disney guy or whatever, Bosny, whatever fucking fake name they gave Disneyland.
yeah.
Also kind of weird. Disney is like an objectively great person in that storyline.
Yeah,
So
there's no confusion over that.
no complicated backstory to that guy. But I will definitely say as I enjoyed the stories more as it went along. I thought it got more cohesive as it went along. And it really, I thought, left a strong impact. I don't know if this is going to necessarily be my favorite story ever, or anything like that. I don't know if this is going to make my top 3 of the year. It might, but I did actually look at some of the series that have come out this year, and there actually is some competition for like the best ones this year.
We read some good stuff. Yeah.
But I will say that it is definitely a really enjoyable series, and you can find it on Viz right now.
Yeah.
I don't
If,
know.
if you've got a Viz account, you can read it all for free. Like
Yep.
if you've got rather a Jump subscription, you can read up all of it. It's open to you. Um, I do want to talk about one last little thing.
Okay.
It's one of the late developments in the series. I think it is the last story before the conclusion. So because it's the second Sugiura story.
Yeah.
So, uh, what happens in that is that Sugiura, since the beginning of the series, basically has had a crush on Akane, who was like the main girl outside of Shiaki, because she's the first girl that Picasso helps. And because of the method that Picasso ends up messing with her head, which was to basically hug her mind avatar and comfort her over the death of her pet bunny from when she was a baby that made her not want to eat vegetables, which is why she's anemic all the time.
Such a fucking. It sounds so much dumber when you explain it too. Where you're just like, made sure, I guess.
But because of that, because he, was comforting her in that physical and affectionate way, that has had like a permanent influence on the way that she perceives him mentally. And so she has a crush on him throughout basically the rest of the story. So Sugura has a crush on her and she doesn't even notice, basically. But so Sugura tries to, go on a date with her and stuff like that, and she rejects him. He tries to kiss her and she smacks him in the face. And like he had given her this blue rose necklace, and she was like, if this is what you're expecting from me, then no, you can take it back. It's like very like, no, no. So he very nearly rebounds onto her sister, which is like, oh, because she liked him, but he was clearly just doing it just to get over Akane, and is like, that would have been a dick move. And that's like the situation they have to resolve, which is just like him not hurting her by not doing right in that relationship. But we see. Go ahead.
As I say, even in that is another one of those situations where I'm like, everyone comes out really in the most positive way. Because, like, I feel like in her situation, she had a right to still be angry about how far it did get. And she's still like, nope, thank you for not hurting me. Good day, good sir. And you're like, I don't think that's how that conversation would go
her to
in the moment.
His bedroom.
Yeah.
Like, but we end up seeing this memory that basically explains why Sugiura is so drawn to Akane, which is that when they were almost too young to remember, they met each other as kids in this like garden, and they were looking for a blue rose together, and that's why he gave her the blue rose necklace, was that he just kind of knew that she would like it, but he didn't remember why. And one of my favorite moments in the entire sequence that happens is after that, he remembers who she is. And so they're like talking on the phone, and he brings that up to her, and she's like, oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I thought it was you. Huh. And they don't immediately like, oh, I guess we were meant to be together or anything like that. They're just kind of like, oh, well, I'm glad that I know that now. And then Sugura's just like, listen, I know you like Picasso, but I just want you to know that I do still love you, but I'm not going to do anything about it until you're ready, basically. So it's just this very like, it's this very nice way of kind of tying everything together while still leaving it open potentially for the future, but not in any way saying like, oh yeah, they're destined to be together or anything like that. It's just kind of a way for them to kind of like, it brings them back together and reestablishes their friendship because they're able to bond over that again. So if that story had been like the standard for the series, I think that this would have been an incredible series overall. As it stands, it's good. It's not incredible, I think. But that was a very fun series to read and talk about. So glad for that.
I enjoyed it.
Now, we have some other manga to talk about, including one that had a bizarre development apparently.
Yeah, so remember when we shut all over Samurai 8 for like 8 months?
Apparently, Masashi Kishimoto got bored not writing anything. So, oh no!
I think he might have taken the cancellation of Samurai 8 a little hard, and
I'm just gonna put all of my explanations from someone else in this series.
Look, I want to laugh. Part of me feels kind of bad because this is a dude who was like, I'm gonna make a new series, and it fucking just crashed and burned. He's like, I guess I'll just do that one thing everybody liked for the rest of my life.
And not to mention that, but also the writer of Boruto is apparently out of a job now. So
I'm sure he'll move on to something else.
I'm sure, but
But
that's just like, that just kind of sucks. Just like, get out of the seat. Kishimoto Sensei wants back in the captain's chair. Number 52 of Boruto, Baryon mode. So this is the new super ultra awesome tailed beast mode. This is Naruto's Super Saiyan 2 mode, which Jigen is like, why didn't he use this before? And so we get an explanation as to why he didn't use it before, because Naruto's all super powerful. And then Kurama explains. And he says the strangest thing that I would have ever expected an ancient demonic fox spirit from a series about magic ninjas to ever say, which is, think of it like nuclear fusion.
Which is funny in many ways. One, it implies nuclear fusion is a known thing in the Naruto universe. Two, it implies Naruto is presumed to be smart enough to know what nuclear fusion is, which he clearly isn't. Yeah, he clearly doesn't based on his immediate response, like, what the fuck is that? So, like, Kurama definitely had a high opinion of him in that moment. He's like, no, this new form's complicated. Let me explain it to you like this. It's like nuclear fusion. He's like, what the fuck's that? He's like, oh, god damn it.
It doesn't matter.
I'm teamed up with an idiot.
You have known him for 20 years.
He's like, did Naruto go with me to the nuclear fusion tour? Well, he would have had to.
Like, Naruto goes into like an MIT class and sits down and promptly falls over unconscious, and then his demonic fox spirit sits up in his chair, puts on glasses, and starts taking notes.
Fascinating. They're like, Mr. Hokage, if you could at least lower 3 of your 9 flying fox tails that are currently blocking the rest of the class.
You've set 5 of your classmates on fire, sir.
Oh, my apologies.
And before anyone starts to link me some YouTube essay about how, like, clearly this means that because the tail beasts were originated from the Otsutsuki or something like that, it's some sort of Moon Clan technology knowledge or something like that. Shut the fuck up. He's a demon fox ninja magic guy who wants to tell you about how nuclear fusion works.
I don't care. Yeah, like, it's one of those things, like, I don't care if there's a logic in the Naruto universe for it, because I just enjoy the line without the context, because we haven't had the context to this point to assume nuclear fusion is like a discovered and regular science that people would know about. So it's just very, very funny to think, why does Kurama know about nuclear fusion?
So he starts off with that, and Naruto's like, what's that? And Kurama replies, never mind, the theory doesn't matter.
Like, let me explain it like this. What? Naruto, you're in a video game. And you're just like, god damn it, Kishimoto already took over writing this again, didn't he?
So he explains that the other modes that Naruto goes into, Sage mode and his tailed beast mode and stuff, those involve chakra that you acquire from elsewhere. But this is different. The raw materials to create this energy, my chakra and yours, get consumed until one or both our lives run out. So that's the key here is, you know, he can't make any unnecessary moves because that shortens his very lifespan. Those are the tricks to keep this Baryon mode going for as long as possible. Look, Baryon, the first time I ever encountered that word was in relation to Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal stuff. You don't want to be going down that rabbit hole. I know it's a real thing, but don't make me think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal and chaos numbers, all right? So they fight. Naruto punches. They fight. Naruto's doing great. Boxes get dropped on him. They don't work. He dodges around. He's doing great. Punchy punch, kicky kick. Then he does like something that doesn't really come across very well in terms of the way the paneling works, which is that so Jigen tries to throw the chakra rods while they're really tiny at Naruto, and then they expand out. But Naruto just catches them in his hand, and he tries to like really coolly like
Yeah.
toss them down like drumsticks or something. And Jigen's like, "Ugh!" He just gapes. And so he's like, "Oh wow, he's so fast!" And Sasuke's like, "I can barely even track them with my Sharingan, and he managed to catch them." And they're like, "How is he so fast?" So we cut over to Kawaki.
We do everyone's favorite part of Boruto, where we cut over to the room where a bunch of characters sit in a room and talk about the cool stuff that's happening.
So think of it like a video game, Kawaki. I was grown in a jar.
All right, I'm gonna have to take my Plan B route. Think of it a lot like nuclear fusion.
Kawaki's like, I see.
Oh yeah. We've all taken the tour.
Just like everyone in this room is a nerd. Of course. And what do you think of Costos? So, they bring up, apropos of nothing, because it's going to be relevant at the end of the chapter. Because Amato's just like, hey, that's the prosthetic hand. It runs on chakra. It's kind of weird that it's compatible with you. And so they have to say like, oh no, it was actually created for the Hokage. So he's sharing some of his chakra with Kawaki right now, so that the hand will function. And they're like, all right. And then Sumire says, "Are you gonna try and restore his right hand, Mr. Amato?" And Amato's like, "Yes, it will be my first task when all this is over. He's due for a checkup." Okay. Because I'm a good guy now, kind of.
Kind of. Now this is interesting. This is a really interesting time to make bets on how relevant these characters will be going forward. Because Amano feels like that prime target that the previous writer wanted to use him. And also, once Kishimoto takes over, he'll be like, oh, I don't give a fuck about this character anymore.
This definitely feels like the Amato is planning to betray them at the first moment's notice, but as he spends time in Konoha, he gets close to everyone, and so when he's at the crucial moment when he's going to betray everyone, he's going to flash back to when Sumire was like, "Are you gonna fix his right hand?" And he's like, "Yes, little girl, I am, and I'm going to put the Christmas tree back here too." So I don't know. I like if Kishimoto's just like, I don't like this weird glasses cigarette guy, then I probably wouldn't really miss him all that much.
Yeah.
So, Kawaki's chakra hand starts to go, and so everyone's like, "What's going on?" And Kawaki's like, "The Lord Seven's chakra is weakening." And we covered Naruto, and his chakra is weakening. And so everyone's like, "Oh my God, why is this chakra getting weaker?" Boruto is like, "I heard everywhere, Z's." It's a very strange moment to cut to. Anyway, Naruto's burning through his chakra really quickly, which means he's burning through his life force very quickly. So it's like, it looks like you lost the bet there, Hokage, but it's time for me to finish you off. And he starts barfing up blood. He's like, "What the hell has happened to me? He's just been punching and kicking me." And Naruto says, "Now the real game begins to see which of us dies first." And Jigen's like, "What happened to me?" And we got inside Naruto's head again, and Kurama is like coaching him from the corner, basically. Selling him, he's like, "Okay, so here's your strategy, kid. All right, so you gotta keep your right up in." It's basically that. What it boils down to is, you don't need to worry about hitting him very hard. Just touch him. Just land your attacks, because that will connect your chakra to his, which means that this Baryon mode will drain both your life force and his. As long as you keep in contacting him, it'll shave his life away, and that's the bet we need. Because he has a limited lifespan, way more limited than yours. We just need to outlast him that way and shave his life away. And sure enough, Jigen's already like, "I should have had 20 hours left, but now I've got less than 30 minutes somehow. What the fuck is this bullshit? So Naruto keeps on punching him. They punch. Naruto pins him down, and then he's like, "No, this is bullshit! God damn it, I was so close!" And Jien like tries to throw Naruto away. His lifespan's really, really low, which is like visualized by a shadow for some reason. I don't know. Naruto says, "It's too late now. Boo-hoo to you." Like literally, he says "boo-hoo to you," which is incredibly. Naruto, you're like 35 now. Come on, man. So choking, and then all of a sudden, Jigen goes, "Wait a minute, ho, ha ha ha," and he holds his hand out and he's like, "I will be the last one standing after all, not you lesser species." And stuff goes over at Kawaki. Something goes, "Foo," and Shikamaru goes, "Kawaki, explain!" Which I guess is in response to him saying that Naruto's chakra was getting weaker. And Kawaki's like, "I don't know." And then from his artificial arm, black chakra comes out, forms a portal, and he's portaled away. And everyone's like, "What the fuck just happened?" And Otsutsuki Yoshiki is like, "The right hand of Kawaki connected him to your chakra, which means that I was able to use that link to drag him here at this very late moment." And Sasuke goes,
"Sure."
And Sasuke goes, "This is bad." And Boruto's eyes open, and his eyes are like white now. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. So it seems like to me that Boruto passed out, so whatever Oshitsuki is taking over him or whatever is now in control. So that obviously may play a part in all of this. My mind says, like, I doubt Kishimoto is taking over Boruto and then Naruto dies. Like, that just doesn't feel like what he would do. Or it feels like a really weird way to, like, kick off the series that you're now going to be trying to make your money off of. So
he just puts in that bit in Samurai 8 where the father dies.
I'm like, all right, fair enough. It's kind of a cool fight scene. It's just like kind of, I don't know. It's chunky and kind of doofy at times, and I don't understand the context of, like, my arm has the fucking power of fucking Naruto powering it. So I guess Jigen could teleport me in. I guess he detected him based off of Naruto's chakra signature. It just, again, it feels kind of weird how it happens, but I'm like, all right, whatever. It's close enough, I guess.
I mean, I like the idea of the fight that they have, and it's like, oh, this is what Shunsui's Bankai did in a way that makes sense and doesn't cheap it out by just having him make a string that cuts a person's head off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, our lifespans are being cut down. Naruto is known for his vast reserves of energy and chakra, and this guy was only supposed to stay alive for like a day. So there you go. It's a great strategy to employ against him. But yeah, the way that it just kind of goes down at the end is kind of like, and now Kawaki's here. It's like, all right, fine, sure. I guess, I mean, it's a way to have the villain potentially go get a victory when it seemed like the good guys were going to pull one out well beforehand. But it's just kind of a weird, like, because that's why. Hey, Kurama, do you want to explain this to me? Well, you see, according to string theory.
Have you ever heard of a Mobius strip, Naruto? Like, no. Is that a snack?
Mobius, I love the Sonic the Hedgehog world.
Mobius, isn't that the Jared Leto movie coming out soon?
Maybe.
Oh man. Yeah. So instead, Nick, let's talk about Eden Zero, chapter 120, Rebecca versus Brittany. And we get a nice cover spread or cover page of Rebecca and Laguna in the mirror doing makeup. And I think that a nice cover is hopefully indicative of a good chapter.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, okay. I was actually kidding. I actually thought this is a pretty good chapter, but I guess we'll get to it.
Eh.
I guess good in context. Anyways, so the big fight between Homura and person she beat is finally over. So she falls because it's too hot, and Shiki catches her, and he's just like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna take you. You know, this is what friends do." And then he sees he's like, "Eek, a bug," and passes out. So Homura has to carry him, and he's like, "Sorry," and she's like, "Nah, it's fine. Friends help each other." Actually, a pretty good joke. I actually enjoyed it.
I don't know how she was instantly able to recover from her heat exhaustion, but okay.
It's fine. So Rebecca is facing off against a character whose name I learned is Brittany from the chapter title. And Brittany, I believe, is Smoke Lady or Gas Lady. So she tries to kick her. Rebecca tries to kick her, and it won't work because she's fucking smoker and she could just turn into gas. Um, and then Gas Lady reveals her character quirk is she hates stupid women. She hates them because they just use
Yeah.
their good looks to like get over with guys, and I'm like, oh,
Well,
like you.
and according to something she says, you're just like that woman who tried to flirt with him, which means that she probably lost a guy because a girl was more proactive in pursuing him than she was.
In my mind, I assume that is meant to be like someone flirted with Nero because she's a member of Nero's group, and in my mind, I'm like, it's probably Lobelia. That's where Lobelia will show up next. That's just what I assume, but it could mean nothing. Regardless, it's also one of those things where I'm like, I mean, you're not to like point it out, but you're like on the same level of attractiveness of every other character. So I don't know, like,
She wears non-flattering glasses, Chris.
yeah,
That bumps her down a full like 20 points. Like, come on.
I guess. Anyway, she just calls Rebecca a bimbo a whole lot.
Yeah.
And Rebecca just is like, well, this isn't going to work. I'm going to just leave. She tries to just run away, picks up Happy and Pino.
It is a great moment because she's like, well, I can't kick this woman. And then she runs, and then Brittany is like, "You're running away," and Rebecca's just like, "Well, my attacks won't hurt you, so bye."
Yeah. She runs away, goes specifically towards where like the fire attacks were, and leads herself there. And once Brittany gets close to it, she gets lifted into the air because the heat makes the gas rise. And it's a very smart moment. And I actually really, really enjoy the explanation for why she knows this is Rebecca watches a lot of science YouTubers, basically. And she was like, yeah, I learned it on one of her channels. So, there you go. And I was like, all right, that's kind of clever. She runs over to one of the cities. She's like, oh, wait, nobody's here. Ah, shit, what am I going to do? This person's all smoke. Ah, fuck. And then there's a moment where Happy, I guess, in his dream is like, I can't eat another bite. And Rebecca's like, eat? That's it. I just have to eat her. And I'm like, all right. Anyways, they run into an electronics shop. Rebecca grabs the vacuum. It won't turn on because it needs a password. And immediately, I guess a vacuum, vacuum that it's like Parley. You have to put in your social security number for it to activate. She tries to use it. Won't work. Pino's like, here's the password. But at that point, it's too late. Brittany fills the entire gas with poison smoke that just tears her apart and actually presumably kills her. Except Rebecca can activate her cat leaper power before she dies. And she goes back in time. And she's back outside the electronics store. And she's like, oh my God, I'm back here. Hey, I know the password now. So she doesn't even have to get it from Pino. She immediately just turns on the vacuum cleaner, sucks up Brittany, and kicks it into space. And it goes flying off into the sky, Team Rocket style. And Pino is just like, how did you activate the vacuum cleaner without the password? And Rebecca's just like, Cat Leaper activated. And I heard the password from you in a different future. I'm like, wow, your power is really useful. And she's like, actually, this felt different from last time. Are we really in world 31 now? And she's like, it felt like when I fought Nino, the world didn't move. Time just went backwards. Maybe my power can't. And that's how the chapter ends. And I'm like, it's kind of a weird place to end the chapter on, but I guess.
No, it isn't. It's showing her feet. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. Come
on. It's certainly better than the past two fight chapters we've gotten, especially because there's stuff that implies developments of Rebecca's powers for the future. but I'm still just kind of like, yeah, all right. So,
Mhm. I think I enjoy it because one, Rebecca actually got like a fight scene that didn't feel very cheesecakey and actually kind of showed off her wit in a way I like. I actually really like the idea that she has a lot of like weird, like kind of niche pieces of knowledge just because she's so into the regular B-cuber community that she's got like all these little pieces of knowledge from all these channels she
yeah,
watches. It's like that's actually a really cool character trait that I think would be really fun to explore. Um,
yeah, not just bring up once 120 chapters into your series.
yeah. Uh, Brittany herself sucks. Like that character's fuck. I don't get what they were trying to go for. But of the three fights, this is probably going to be the one I'm going to remember the most. So, it had that going for it. And I appreciated that, there was the moment of, oh no, she's lost. She jumps back in time and she's like, now I can get in there. I don't understand why a vacuum cleaner requires a passcode to operate, but whatever. We're in future world. Also, it's a forest planet. What are you vacuuming up? It's just
Leaves.
like dirt's just going to get everywhere though.
All right. Let's move on to Chainsaw Man. Chapter 94, Chainsaw Man versus the Weapon Humans. Uh, it's Denji facing off against Makima and Co. And probably the coolest moment in the whole chapter, Makima uses the powers of the zombie devil to summon a bunch of bodies from the graveyard that they're in, and a bunch of them pick up their headstones to use as like swords. Pretty badass. Denji sticks his chainsaws into the ground, lifts up with his chains big chunks of gravel, and like sends them crashing towards Makima. The weapon devils move in, bash through the concrete, and they fight. A few of them wound Denji. A bunch of the zombies pile on top of him, and he cuts his way out. The flamethrower devil sets the whole thing on fire, and then Denji jumps out of it and cuts through his head. Chipao is like I think the last weapon devil left, and she manages to impale Denji through the torso a whole lot, and basically all of Makima's forces are gone very quickly, but Denji's lying on the ground heavily wounded before he collapses at Makima's feet. Makima stares down at him, uses her bang power to blow a hole in her hand and make it bleed profusely, of course, and she feeds him some of her blood and says, "Wake up, Denji. I'll kill you personally. Trade blows with me." Odd moment.
Yeah, so we also got the news recently that the editor of Chainsaw Man says Chainsaw Man is entering into its quote, I think final stage, I think is the term used, which again with Chainsaw Man could mean fucking anything, but seems to indicate we actually are headed towards some kind of conclusion. If not for the whole series, at least this arc, but it sounds like it's for the series. I have to say that this chapter is really disappointing. I
It's not
know
great.
I know before it made sense because he wasn't Denji, he was the Chainsaw Man who had no consciousness of who he was. But the fact that there's nothing in this chapter that shows that he has any kind of recognition of Reze just feels fucking like a huge waste. Like, why bring back characters we know if Denji has zero thoughts about it? She doesn't even do anything cool. She gets cut down in like a single panel and that's it.
She's barely even like when in the exchange that she's in, you can barely tell that she's involved in it. Like,
Yeah. So
it's also like if you just kind of examine it from like so Denji was the ultra awesome chainsaw man who was super powerful and stuff like that, and Makima has taken away a lot of people's fear of the chainsaw devil, so he should be weaker now, and then he beats them all even more easily than the first time. Like,
yeah, I really
logically makes sense.
don't get what's going on with this series in like the past like 3 months. It looked like we were finally turning a corner and being like that was kind of like the end of Act 2, and now we're starting Act 3, and now it's like no, this is like a very protracted and long falling action. You're like, I mean, I guess, but I mean, this is just something that already has happened at this point. Like, we've already
Yeah.
seen Denji beat all these characters, and if he's not going to at least emotionally deal with them now, then there really is no narrative difference between him doing this as Denji and him doing it when he was just the full chainsaw
Yeah.
devil.
You might as well just not have had the weapon humans be there.
Yeah.
Honestly, if it was just going to be like, here's a chapter of action of him beating them really easily. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, you could have just had this be a chapter of him dealing with a massive horde of zombies, and that could have been cool. Like, all right, Magu-chan, chapter 21, Three Wicked Gods Creeping in the Dark of Night. So, this is a weird kind of setup for a chapter because it's about the three gods having a night on the town, kind of. Uneris basically it sends invitations out to Magu and Naputaku, inviting them out when it's very late. I do like that when the message arrives for Magu, Rue happens to come outside and see him, and she's like, "What have you got there?" And he like hides it by eating it. It's like nothing. It's a very little kid way of dealing with the situation. So they go out at night because Uneris wants to basically experience more of human society and experience the adult world, which Magu says that it sounds like a good plan because he can extend his domain into the city, and Naputaku is like, and also there will be great food for me to eat. He knows what he's about, and I appreciate that. Yeah. But Naputaku is like, if I leave this town, I can come across some really fine dining, and it'll be all mine. And Magu's like, I do not intend to share any of it with you, which I guess is like, the food is also in my domain. Fuck you. So I don't know. There's this very cute panel of them like dressed up for their night on the town. So Uneris is wearing this very fashionable dress, and Magu is in a tuxedo. And Naputaku looks like an old style news reporter for some reason. Like he looks like he belongs in what's that fucking, never mind. It doesn't matter. But then they're just not in those outfits, which I don't know. Seems like a little bit of a wasted opportunity to me, but whatever. They go wandering around the streets, and there's like nobody there because it's not a very populous town that they're in. So everywhere is just kind of closed. So everyone's kind of upset about this. Magu is like, this will serve as a preliminary inspection of my expansion. And Naputaku is like, yeah, and there's probably feasts hidden away in places like this. And he just looks in a trash can. They come across a little kitty cat.
Yep, great ass cat.
It's got a little collar with a bell on it. And I do love this bit because Magu's like, lowly creature, submit to me and give me offerings. And the cat just goes and just walks off. Because it's like, it's a cat. Yep. But they follow the cat, and they happen to come across a place that is open, which is just this little dive bar. And so she agrees to serve them, presumably after Naputaku mentions being over 600 years old. And they drink some beer. Naputaku gets drunk immediately, which makes sense because they're very small. Uneris does not drink because she likes to keep her health and figure. Okay. Magu accuses her of wanting to get them drunk so that she can extract information from them. And Uneris is like, no, I wasn't trying to trick you. I just actually wanted to chat with you guys. I wanted us to, share information. So Magu asks her, all right, well, why do you pretend to have been caught by the holy knighthood? As he points out, just like, there's no way that someone with your power of providence would have actually been captured by them. And Uneris is just like, I get free air conditioning and unlimited internet, and I can stand all the nights there. It's like, it's not really new information, it's like, because I wanted to.
Yeah.
So Magu's kind of like discussing with her a little bit, but she says, but the Holy Knights don't want to lose possession of my powers. I can protect myself. I can protect the Knights from the people who have escaped from their seals. It's it's a nice symbiotic relationship. And then she asks, hey, Magu, what about your relationship with Ruru? And Magu doesn't really know what she's talking about at first, but she's like, I mean, you're with this naive little girl, and she seems somehow important to you. And Magu kind of is like, sort of. He says, "She's nothing more than a disciple. However, she has become something to me which I did not anticipate." And so the bartender says, "Is this Ruru your lady?" And Magu's like, starts giving those kind of vague answers that could be interpreted as Ruru being his like romantic interest. And she's imagining Ruru as like just a female Magu, like Magu
The
with
Miss
a bow.
Pac-Man, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I just put a bow on it. Now it's a girl. Give it eyelashes.
So the bar keeps like, well, are you complimenting her regularly? Because if you've been together for a few months, then maybe her appreciation is just naturally waning, and she's getting kind of tired of you. So if you compliment her, then you can make sure that she knows you don't take her for granted. And Mug is like, "I should bestow honor upon her. Most informative." After that, they're basically done for the day. And she invites them to come over and drink anytime. Naputuku is passed out. Somehow he has tied his tie around his head, which is very impressive considering he did not have a tie when he came into the bar. But I guess
Also, he has no fingers, so how can he grip a tie? There's a lot of questions, really.
Also,
his head is one narrow point, so at any point, if he tips his head down, the tie would just slide off.
The cat is laughing at him, which I've never actually heard a cat laugh, but I know they do it all the time.
Oh yeah, so. No, it's the
yeah, the Muttley laugh.
Yeah.
So dawn breaks and they decide it's time to go home. They start heading out. Each of them bids farewell to the others, except for Naputuku, who's asleep, but his hermit crabs carry him away when what is referred to as the Napu Taxi, which is a wonderful play on words. Magu goes home. Ruru wakes up just as he's coming in, and so he remembers what the barkeep told him and is like, "That you can rouse yourself from slumber without my aid is most worthy of praise." And Ruru is just like, "Thanks." And so they start going about their day, and he's like praising her for really weird things, like being able to walk.
That's my favorite one. To be able to stand on two legs and make great strides forward. What an achievement!
What? All right.
What the fuck's happening?
And Naputuku's hungover, so it was a different kind of chapter for Magu-chan. I like the character development that kind of takes place between some of the gods. I wish there'd been a little bit more of it with Naputuku because, I mean,
he has just become a butt monkey.
That's all there is to him. And I think that previous chapters demonstrated that he is, yes, a butt monkey, but he's capable of having a little bit more to him than that. And it would have been nice to have him just have like one meaningful exchange with either Uneris or Magu before passing out drunk, and that's just it for him for the chapter. But it was nice to see a different kind of side that, like, yes, these are gods who do like treat each other as equals, and so they're able to have this more honest conversation with each other, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the very scene too of heading out into a bar in the very late hours of the night and basically staying out till morning. I mean, that's like such a evocative kind of thing. I mean, we've had that where we've just gone out to bars before and you go out very late.
We weren't open until
not dawn.
We were out late, yeah.
But it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that is kind of where you get like some really interesting discussions. It's just a very like, it's very like nostalgic time, even though it's not like you didn't really do a whole lot except fucking drink and shit like that. But so I like that choice.
Hey Chris, remember when I poked a shard of glass?
Yes, and you made the bartender give you a Band-Aid. Yes.
I didn't. Well, I kind of I instinctively asked for one because I realized I was bleeding, and then he brought out the real Band-Aid and gave me the joke small Band-Aid first, and we were like, that joke small Band-Aid is probably too big for the cut you've got, Nick.
Oh boy, great times. But no, I actually did enjoy this chapter. I think the idea that it's not all just about like gags and gags and gags and you put some substance behind it really helps. And I thought the end jokes were really good too. I like the joke of like, you have to compliment her poor, and he gets home and he has no idea what to compliment a human for.
Great fucking.
He's like, you awoke, fantastic.
Yeah. Also, it is weird to see, like, you can tell that Ruru's taller now that it's been brought up. So it's like, time is moving forward for these people. So
Yep.
but yeah, it was a good chapter of Magu, but it was good in a different way than I think we've come to expect. So.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, let's move on to the new series in Weekly Shonen Jump, Sakamoto Days. Chris, you know what we need? Because I haven't seen anything. I need a hitman or a spy series, but one that also focuses on their family life. That's what I need, okay? What's up, Chris? What's wrong?
I fucking hate this series.
You hate it.
I hate it. There are so many fucking mediocre comedies in Jump right now. I did not need another one.
All right,
No, it's hysterical because he's fat and he doesn't talk at all. It's great. It's a fucking, what an enchanting world. All the fucking great jokes we'll get out of a fucking character who doesn't talk at all. It's hysterical. There's a psychic, though. I hope we don't have another series in the Jump family about a psychic and a hitman that's far funnier and far more heartwarming. Because it'd look really fucking stupid if we did have that.
Chris, do you just want to take the lead on this?
Sure, it sucks.
No, dude. I felt kind of positive about this. But I didn't feel very strongly about it, so if you just want to go on.
I have no real strong thoughts beyond just the note of just like, I guess we're just gonna do this again.
You know what, Chris? Maybe Sakamoto Days can turn itself around. Maybe it can just abandon this tried and true spy hitman family dynamic and instead go for being an Exorcist series. Strike off on its own.
At this point, I would almost appreciate it because I'm so I when I read everything in Jump, I generally I have to kind of start with a lot of the series we won't talk about because if I do, then I tend to forget a lot of those details. And there's a lot of the stuff that we don't talk about that are just not very good, and I like start with that to kind of like get through it. And there's just a chunk, like a fucking big meaty like 5-chapter long stretch of just mediocre comedy series that maybe one of them will have a good joke and the rest of them you're just like, God, I just
why am I still reading?
There's so many. I'm just like, why is Mori King still going on? I don't get it.
We had 2 new series debut. Why didn't anything end?
You're just like, maybe it'll be, I don't know. Look, I understand there's a lot of people that seem to really enjoy this series, and that's great stuff. This is definitely a series that as I read this, I was like, it's fine, I suppose. It's fine, but I want nothing to do with it. Like, just reading it, I was just like, it starts with a poop joke. I'm so fucking tired of it.
Alien poop joke.
Yeah, well, I mean, now you've made it intriguing. Now you have my attention.
I do love the cover page for the series with Sakamoto with the gun in one hand and then the scanner gun in the other. That's a nice. That's like all you need is like that visual. It's very effective. Mm-hmm. But
because you see, Nick, you would expect him when he has the gun that he's a killer. But the hilarious twist of it is he has a barcode scanner in the other one because he's not actually an assassin, Nick. He's just a dumpy shop clerk, actually. But he's got a family with all the personality of wife and child to enjoy. So it's for all ages of the goddamn family. Bring them all in. They'll all enjoy this fucking shit.
I think that, like, all of your pent up, like, just willing to just kind of accept it, patience for, like, stuff that wasn't good enough for us to keep covering it has just kind of come boiling over.
It is.
at
It's
the end of this year.
100% not actually Sakamoto Days' fault, but Sakamoto came in at the exact wrong time, at the exact wrong place, and it's catching all of it.
Chris, I think it's time for me to reveal something. And that is my veto in the bank.
No! It didn't even wait till chapter 3. I had to read chapter 2 and 3 with the acknowledgement. I just had to keep reading it.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if I actually want to keep this or not. It was justice for me to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the exact level where I'm just like,
purely for spite, we're going to keep on.
It was a real, like, a fucking grown adult tantrum, too. Like, I've ever as I was reading. I was like, I don't want to read it. I don't want it anymore. Just throw a basketball. I need some, like, a sports series in this goddamn magazine at this point.
There's no sports series. Fuck you, Sakamoto Days.
Yeah, I really just turned against it.
The premise of the series, there's this former hitman named Sakamoto. He used to be, like, the world's greatest hitman. He went into a convenience store one day, fell in love at first sight with the girl who was at the counter. They immediately abandoned his hitman lifestyle. They got married. They had a kid. And all the punchline is, and Sakamoto's gotten out of shape now. He's all pudgy. Which I like Sakamoto's just kind of premise of just like, he's just this kind of 40-year-old dad now. It's like Jump could use a little bit more variation in his protagonists, and I do appreciate that. I also appreciate that he just kind of has this like these moments where his hitman lifestyle occasionally comes back to him. Like he stops the guy who's going to beat up a kid, and he just imagines gouging out the guy's jugular with a pen, and he's like, "No, I'm a shopkeeper now, and so I'm not going to do that." But as it turns out, there is a hitman who has come to see him named Shin, and he's clairvoyant, so he can read minds. So Anya talks to the hitman, and basically he tries to like bring him back to the hitman lifestyle, and we do just get some moments where Sakamoto proves that he still got it. Like, you know, he chops off the tip of Shin's cigarette when he tries to smoke in a non-smoking area. But he refuses to go. He obviously has literally no interest in going back. Like he shows Shin what he does with his day, and he's just kind of like the guy who just kind of helps people out, which includes a moment where some kids are upset that they have to share a ball, so he rips the ball in half, and somehow it becomes 2 balls because he's just that good, I guess. But so Shin leaves. And he's like, okay, I guess I couldn't bring him back to the hitman life, which means that he's supposed to kill Sakamoto, but he doesn't want to. Obviously, he tries to, and Shin deflects the bullet by spitting a cough drop at it, and they have a little fight scene in the shop until Sakamoto just kicks him through the shelves and knocks him out. Sakamoto's family cares for him, and then basically Shin realizes, oh, this is what Mr. Sakamoto actually gave up everything for, is that he really, really cares for this life and this family that he has. So he goes back to the hitman, to the mob boss, and is like, please don't kill Mr. Sakamoto. And the guy's like, well, if you kill yourself, then I guess he can live. And then he's, of course, thinking like, I mean, I'm going to kill him anyway. And Shin's like, I heard that, because he's clairvoyant and he can read minds.
I mean, I guess he's supposed to be an idiot, but can you give a real big fucking round of applause to the mob boss who was like, yeah, sure, you kill yourself and I'll make that deal. Then loudly thinks, I'm not going to make that deal. And then he's like, oh, right, that guy can read minds. I'm like, his name's the clairvoyant. I don't. It's his one thing.
Sakamoto from afar hears gunshots, and he reveals that he's got an entire arsenal, including gardening tools, hidden in his, like, you know, super spy convenience shop. Well, Must have been really weird to get that past the insurance agent. So then Sheen is not doing so well. Sakamoto shows up in the nick of time and tases some goons, and they fight and they save the day. Yay! Sakamoto sure is awesome still. And then afterwards, Sheen is like, "I've made a decision. As of today, I'm good." But Sakamoto throws an apron at him, and Sakamoto just thinks, but it's actually weird because like he actually speaks for the first time here because he thinks 800 yen an hour or 850 yen with extra for overtime. And so Shin gets hired to work at Sakamoto's shop. His clairvoyance proves helpful. And that's where we're starting off the series. It's two hitmans working at this little convenience store, and Sakamoto's got kids. I think that there are some parts of the series that are interesting, and I do like that it takes a different approach to the spy family or Yozakura family premise. It's it's the old hitman who just wants to have a nice convenient life, and then we have this kind of more typical shonen protagonist, more POV kind of character that we experience through, but the main attraction is this older guy. This series is going to live or die based on how funny people find it. We'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you know what I think my favorite part was?
What was that, Chris?
It's when he takes out his gun, and this is kind of pretty novel. So I think it's pretty innovative for a spy comedy series to have the main character with a gun that shoots electricity. I think it's really just on the forefront of like fingers on the pulse of fucking the magazine to recognize that nothing else in Jump's doing that recently. So
yeah, I can't wait until like 100 chapters later when it turns into a sword. That'll be amazing.
Yep. Look, I really don't think it's as bad as I'm making it out to be, but I have so much exhaustion from reading these, like, because this isn't that funny to me. Like, I didn't get like a laugh out of this chapter, and when you're reading like 5 series a week that just are comedies that are not funny, you just reach a tipping point where you're just like, fuck, why am I choosing to do this to myself? And you're like, it helps give you this real-rounded kind of knowledge of what's going on in the magazine, things like that. But you're just like, I guess we have one more of these to add to it. And because nothing feels like it's leaving the recap, except weirdly, Phantom Seer feels like it's either entering a part 2 or might be wrapping up. Yeah, like it's really quickly jumping through some stuff. It's just like, all right, we'll go along with it.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes. Chris.
Ooh.
What about that We Never Learn series?
Yeah, let's talk about that We Never Learn series. Question 183. A pizza bet equals the Queen of Thin Ice, part 6. So we're in a flashback. And it's Kirisu when she was in high school, and she's thinking about, I missed our school trip, and this year I'm probably not going to make the school festival again. It's just how it is. I'm a figure skater. I have to focus on that. And then she's like, oh, hey, we actually finished surprisingly early. I could actually make the school festival. If I run, I might make it in time for the closing ceremony. And she runs there, and she's like, oh, wow, so exciting. There's the closing ceremony. Oh, there's my classmates. And she's like running over to see her classmates, and they're all like, oh, hey, Kirisu, it's so exciting. Don't you have figure skating? She's like, yes, but I finished early. And they're all just talking, and they kind of start to like mosey on into the festival, and she's paralyzed and stuck because she's like, why won't I go? My friends are right there. I could join them. I just want to move. And she thinks about her parents who are saying, hey, you're this very special, raw genius. You have to focus. Everyone else is a rival. It doesn't matter. And she's like, oh, yeah, figure skating is just an excuse. The truth is, this longing I want so badly, but at the same time, I'm afraid to let people in because everyone's my rival. And is there anywhere that I belong? Am I truly capable of loving others? I'm scared. So
the only person I can be with is someone who doesn't intimidate me, like someone who's like a baby who I don't have to compete with.
Oh, jeez. So we cut back to the present. Yuega, Kirisu's just like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't. Romance is just out of the question. So it's just not going to work. In figure skating, in my class at school, even my family, I keep everyone at a distance. So I just don't know how to love or be loved. And Yuega's like, thank you for telling me. Now I know more about the woman I love. And it's just like
Creepy.
it's an audible like sound effect where it's like, the part of like, hey, Yuega kind of addressed the fact that he's acknowledging the fact that he fell in love with his teacher, but hasn't like really kind of addressed the issues that go on with that relationship. And then someone came along and was like, I can make this better. What if he fell in love with her when he was 11 instead? And you're like, no, that doesn't. That's the opposite of making it better.
You stop that.
Basically, the school festival's going on. Kirisu's just like, I don't get it. Yuega seems like he's doing fine. I'm the one who's kind of acting weird. Yuega eventually gets her wrapped up in all these events for the school festival, being like, hey, we're part of a helper club, so we'll help all the different groups. And it's very exhausting. Kirisu eventually is like, why are we doing it? And Yuega's like, well, I wanted you to experience a school festival. And she gets to get thanked by all the different classes, and she has to like receive their love in the form of gifts. So it's sort of a sweet moment where Kirisu is kind of shown love and how to like reciprocate it. And the end of the chapter is Yuega basically being like, I'm giving you this full experience, so that's what we're going to do. It's just not good enough to save this arc's, sword of Damocles that's hanging over its head. And Yuega himself also just feels weirdly like, I have been programmed to be in love this time. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's not very good.
I don't buy why Yuiga is in love with Kirisu.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like... So the first 3 arcs in the series were about Yuiga realizing he was in love with one of the girls, or about him falling in love with them. The 4th one was about him being in love with Asumi and us seeing how that happened through flashbacks, and then him having to deal with, them wanting to be together, but not allowing themselves to be. This one is about him being perfect. And just like Kirisu just has to open her heart up to him and everything will be fine. Why is he in love with Kirisu? I don't know. Because she's got that butt.
Honestly, I would kind of even appreciate it too if his like attraction was just purely physical. Something that just, and I feel like we're going to get it. And although we harp on it, I don't actually...
We actually had positive things to say about his physical attraction to Asumi in the last chapter when it was like her lips, and it was like, no, that's like, geez, that's very erotic.
Yeah, I was like, that actually was really hot, So it's like,
I buy you were attracted to that woman. But then this is just like, because she's I don't know. Like, it's... And then it just kind of draws it back to that whole thing where like, they made the promise that Kirisu was like 90% kidding about when Yuiga was like 11. Has he just been in love with her because of that? And if so, ew. And I'm just not buying it. And now it's just like, it seems as though all the stuff in Yuiga's end is just resolved. Yes. It's like, he knows how he feels about Kirisu. He wants to be together with her. He has no doubts about this. It is all about, can Kirisu's thawed heart melt? Can she stop being frozen over? Can she let herself love? Yeah. Can she? And
it has that element to it. And here's the thing. So like the start of the chapter, in a vacuum, I would kind of enjoy this story that Kirisu has always kind of had ice skating as this excuse to not hang out with people, but in actuality, it wouldn't matter if it was ice skating. She would find some other reason to push people away, and that would be an interesting wrinkle to her character to follow. But because it's all kind of caught in now with this story about her falling in love with one of her students, and potentially adding on the extra level of maybe she also kind of made a promise to him when he was 11. I'm not going to harp too much on that. It's even without that, it's still a gross relationship. Like, I don't want to. I like. There's just going to be a part of me that's not going to want to get emotionally invested in this because it's a very kind of gross suggestion for like a teacher to be like, I'll marry my student later on in life when they're not my student. Like that's that. It's just not a good look. And then
it's a good thing that she's able to love him because she doesn't, and she knows she doesn't have to fear him because she doesn't see him as a rival because he's younger than her.
Yeah, there's just a lot of gross stuff that has to kind of exist here. And then it's also kind of weird, but I also have to take points off the chapter because it's not horny at all, really.
No.
I was like,
the horny scale. Hang on, let me check real quick. But I was like, okay, she wears a Chinese dress that shows her cleavage. That's pretty good, but don't see nearly enough of it. And that's about it. So 2 out of 10.
I was gonna say you get like a couple boob shots,
no
but
butt shots. What kind of Kiryu chapter has no butt shots, Chris?
I mean, there's one butt shot when she gets startled by someone saying "Uega Sensei." It's kind, it's fine. It's when you've been eating fucking filet.
No. Listen, I need to have at least 4 of those shots.
I was gonna say, when you've been eating filet mignon for fucking weeks, going back to a hamburger is still a step down. It's still meat, but it's a step down. That's the hamburger of butt shots, is what I'm saying. That's not going to be the chapter title. But still,
I have 2 more things to note.
Okay.
One of them is actually I've forgotten one of them. The other one I want to bring up is just the replica rabbit in the chat suggests that Yuiga imprinted on Kirisu, which makes me just want to see that scene from the Twilight movies reenacted, where he just sees her and just. And that's it. I would take that. That's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guessing We Never Learn is still going to end soon. If this follows the pattern of the other side stories, then that means that we're going to have 3 more chapters, which means that this rotation of manga is going to have the new chapters now and then an ended series in like 3 more weeks, which sounds odd to me. So I'm thinking, is there something else?
Something else ending?
Something else in weekly manga in We Never Learn, rather.
Oh, I mean, potentially.
It could always just be another story, I guess. That was the thing I wanted to bring up. This whole thing really just makes me think that the only reason there was a Kirisu story is because there were stories for the other girls.
Yeah. And
I really if you were going to try and convince me, like, oh no, all of the stories are equally canon. No, they're not.
Yeah.
We talked about when the Ogata one happens, like, this one's just not nearly as good as the Iruka one. Iruka is clearly the canon. I was like, but we found good things to say about the Fumino one, and the Asumi one was arguably the best of the first 4, just in terms of standalone quality. This one feels like no effort has been put into it, honestly. It feels like it's just there because it has to be. And it's very frustrating because even with the girls that Yuiga didn't seem like he was going to be the best with, there were a few interesting stories there, and this is just there. So
I think what hurts is that generally, even in those stories, Yuiga's charm kind of made it more interesting. But Yuiga has like kind of become a very boring character to me right now, just because he's so confident in this love that's just not worth investing in. Like I do enjoy his sweet gesture of like, I'm going to help him. I'm going to help Kirisu enjoy the school festival she never had. That's very classic Yuiga. It's so hard to enjoy it when I know the motivation behind it is like, I love this girl, and I have yet to really give a reason behind it, so it's hard to really get invested in it,
The other 4 stories were not the girl stories. They were Yuiga and Uruka. They were Yuiga and Asumi's story. Yuiga and Fumina's story. Seikujo's story featuring her best friends Ogata and Buddy. All right, let's move on to Dr. Stone.
Time to get stoned.
Z equals 175. Ultra race across South America. They've made rubber. Hooray! And immediately, Kaseki and Chrome, nerds that they are, like, look, we can stretch this out between us. And Gen's just like, oh no, I know exactly what's gonna happen here. And sure enough, the rubber snaps into Chrome's face and like hits him so hard that it like makes him lose a tooth. And it's like, yep. But they're like, hey, this is a big step for us. We can make tires from this, and that means that we can make motorcycles. Awesome. Kohaku is immediately being an expert Super Ball juggler because she's just like a character. But Senka's like, no, this is once we process this, we can use this more than just a plaything. He leaves the manual labor over to Taiju, of course, and so they go through the process of kind of processing the rubber in order to soften it up so that they can actually make a tire out of it. They stamp it, give it, some treads and stuff. And then we get very oddly a thing that also happened in the last chapter, which was Zeno looking off into the distance meaningfully while recognizing that he's got to work with Senku for right now. Like, just the exact same thing happens. They process the rubber some more, and they make some tires. Hooray! And Kawaku's like, oh wow, these things are way smoother and speedier than the bamboo wheels we have to use in the village. Then Kaseki, who cried over the science lab last chapter, starts dismantling the boat while they're still at sea. And everyone's like, what are you doing? What is it? And he's like, oh, we're harvesting materials. There's all this shaped metal here ready to use. And Suika brings up, if we're taking the boat apart, aren't we going to drown? And Kaseki says, no, we'll be moving even faster with a lighter vessel. And Chrome's like, I mean, we're carrying the parts you filtered around with us, so we're not really any light. Da 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 da. Make a motorcycle. So we cut over to Stanley's vessel as they're trying to make their way to after Senku and company. They come across the decoy science lab, and oh no, the Going Merry boom is blown up. It's gone forever. And it cried, except it didn't, because it wasn't nearly as anthropomorphized. It's just a piece of machine.
No, I think there's actually a pretty small text bubble you could read where it says I only wish I could have carried you guys a little bit further. It's like mixed up in the waves. Only certain versions have it. It's like a golden ticket. You had to be lucky.
Nintendo.
Yeah, my dad works at Nintendo. He told me that the mobile lab said I love you guys as he drowned. My dad is an Agaki.
See, you can play as Metal Mario if you just So they realize that, of course, they've got to head for the other radio signal and start heading there. They've made it to Ecuador, and they see when they get there, oh, looks like things are a bit different here after a few thousand years have passed. Because the landscape is a little bit different, but it's okay. We've got the motorcycles. It just means that we won't have a lot of cover. They keep on dismantling the boat, which Suika's upset about. But Senku's like, yeah, we're done with the boat. We're going to just go on motorcycles and cut across South America that way. And Ryusui's like, strip out the wood. That's our fuel, which surprises the modern day people because they're like, well, we're going to have motorcycles that will run on wood? And so they're all confused, except for Dr. What's her name? Chelsea, because she says, that's totes awesome. So Senku declares they're going to make a boss bike and 5 baby bikes. The boss bike is going to have a boiler that burns wood and collects charcoal gas in tanks. Each baby bike gets a tank to hook up to its engine. And so Chrome builds up like, wait, so that means we're going to have to build 6 engines. That's going to take a lot of time. Stanley could catch up with us in that time. But then he thinks about, it's like, okay, wait, 6 engines powered by gas from charcoal. The crash should be able to get us there. So they're like, oh, we've got a boiler and 6 engines already right here on the boat. So they're like, yes, that's why we made 6 vehicles. So we had 6 engines already. So Ukia warns them that the mobile lab has been sunk, which means that they're running out of time, of course. Ryusui declares that with this time load, that means that they've got to work through the night, several nights in a row, basically. And he's like, I've got a desire to see those finished products. Sunrise eventually one day. Suika spots Stanley's ship coming, and I don't know what kind of technology they use in order to launch all these people on lines from the aircraft carrier, but they seem to almost be fired from cannons given the way that they fly through the air. Anyway, they surround what's left of the boat and are rampaging towards it. Ginro's like, everyone run! But then the side of the boat cracks open and a whole bunch of motorcycles come stampeding out. And Senku, like, looks really pleased with himself for once. Like, this is not just like, all right, on to the next one. This is like, I built a bunch of motorcycles.
I'm the best.
So yeah, they are riding off on motorcycles now. So hooray.
Yep. This was a chapter of Dr. Stone.
That's basically all you can say.
That's really all I had to say about it.
A couple of laughs here and there. They made a science, and hooray, the day was saved until they have to use science to save the next day. It was fine. Yeah.
All right, Nick, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 40, Mash, Burn Dead, and the Candle's Flame. So we start this chapter by talking a little bit about the Divine Visionaries. They are the foremost group of magic users in the world, and they the force that keeps it running. The majority of tasks dealing with magic are handled by them, but they also have another role working as the state-sanctioned police force to protect society from those that would harm it. And to symbolize their role as the servants of the divine, they are given titles marking them as the Wands of God. And we see a little baby owl flying in the sky before we then, I guess, zoom out to the very imposing Catholic cathedral where this is taking place. And it is the emergency inquiry into Mash Burn Dead's concealment of his lack of magic. And it's just Mash's face with like the little bit of like drool kind of hanging down. And we cut to yesterday when basically exactly where the last chapter ended, where like Abyss and Lemon had like kind of an awkward moment, and Al just fucking crashes in through the window.
The least graceful owl ever. Like
just breaks through it, drops off the note. Mash reads it, goes yikes, and then we cut back to the present day. So
there's the explanation of how we ended up here. Mash got a letter, guys.
It all happens in half of a page, and you're like, yeah, I love it. I'm glad we had this flashback to explain how Mash was notified about this.
Can you imagine if like this just took place in the modern day and it's like, oh, how did we get to this point? It just cuts to Mash and he's like sitting at his computer, bling, receives an email. Uh-oh.
We are introduced to the vice director of the Bureau of Magic, Bless Minister. That is not his title. His name is Bless Minister.
Pope Man McColy dude.
Oh man, I hope there's a character with that name. Bless, or Mr. Minister as he's often called. Mr. Minister.
That's what the sinister minister had to call himself when he was doing indie scenes, I guess.
Yeah. So he basically explains everything wrong. He's like, concealing your magic is a crime. Even worse, you went undiscovered until enrollment. It's without precedent. And then he basically goes on in a kind of long rant about God and rejects, basically. He's like, God created this world. It's a thing of beauty. Magic is his. Magic is a miracle bestowed on us alone. And something has threatened this beautiful miracle, you. And I love Mash's reaction. It's just like, question mark? He's like, oh. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You are a bug in the system. You must be dealt with quickly before you disturb the order of things any further. And it just like closes book at him and again, like, he's like, yeah, but what if things didn't have to be perfect all the time? He's like, listen here, you little shit.
I love you, Mash. Like, it's just like, what if things didn't have to be perfect all the time? Aww. It's okay, buddy. You don't realize you're dealing with bigots that
Yeah.
have lived on for 1,000 years. Like,
So Bless is about to go off on this whole big thing when he's interrupted by somebody who says, "In this world, there's no such thing as an unshakable confidence. In the end, all that matters is success. What you need is not confidence, but faith in yourself." And we see this character called Rio Grants, Magic Security Forces Captain, the Light Crane, and it's an individual who has kind of like the magician slash circus performer kind of aesthetic to him. He's got like the two lines underneath the eye. He's holding a deck of cards. He's got a very fancy scarf. And Rio just says, "You've got the potential to become a real man." And Bless is like, "Lord Visionary, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "That's not important right now. Isn't that right, Mushroom Head?" Mash is like, yeah, I guess. What else is he gonna do? So Rio basically says like, "Hey, you know what? We all have to live by the rules here, and the rules suit the majority, of course. So, if we tried to accommodate everybody, we'd never have stability. So what do you do when you're not part of the majority that the rules are in favor of? Simple. You sway the majority to your side. For what it's worth, you don't even have to be right. All that matters is who's talking." So he creates a candle, and Mash is just looking at it, and he says, "Light it without touching it." Mash is like, no touching? He's like, "Yeah, magic is everything in this world. You need to show us a miracle stronger than magic. Are you truly manly? Then prove it." And Bless is just like, "This is stupid, asking someone without magic to light a candle from that distance." And he's like, "I pulled out a wand. What's someone with no magic going to do with a wand?" And he's gonna be like, "Oh no, Rio, this was so cruel of you. You gave him an impossible task. He's just gonna give up." Mash puts it on the ground, puts his fingers or his hands on the other side, and just starts rubbing it like he's starting a fire. And he literally starts an enormous fire whirlwind that shoots out. And Bless is like, "That's a fucking marble floor. How is he getting the traction for this?" And Mash lights it, and he says, "All right, I get it. I'll change this world's views with my fist." So Rio comments, he's like, "All right, you're hot stuff." But then an announcement is made, the divine visionaries have arrived, and they're all talking. Somebody's like, "Get rid of a magicless student." "Oh, they're in that room. This is the worst part of the job, blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of fucking great. This seems like this is our new antagonist group, and the character we're zoomed in on, I have to presume is the leader, and the fucking the main villain is a fucking Harry Potter character. It is great. He just says, "We exist to maintain order. There is no exceptions," and it's like, fuck yes, man. I want to see that evil Harry Potter. I know he's probably not going to have an actual personality of Harry Potter, but I love the idea we've gone so far in on this fucking trope that it's like, we'll just start using more of the characters now.
I want to find out about that dark-skinned guy in the back who's got the biggest feet in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also kind of interested in the dude who just has a fucking baby dragon riding on his head.
Yeah.
He's got some fucking good shit going on. I like him.
We knew, of course, that a bunch of people had discovered that Mash could not use magic, but this is quite an escalation to pull out with no warning. That the world knows about him now, and so he's basically kind of been given this task to change the world while people know his secret. Mash, I think, is at a point. Mashle is at a point where, hey, it's very firmly established. It keeps on getting all these color pages, so it seems to be doing very well. It looks like it's being pushed as one of Shonen Jump's promising new series, and it's just kind of like, yeah, diving with both feet first into just doing it, and I don't really know where things are going to go from this point now that we're here, because it seems as though Mash has kind of gotten approval from someone very influential. At the same time, someone is there to kick him out of the school. So that's going to be odd to have to deal with. But
it's also interesting because we're introduced to kind of a very new element of this world, because you sort of had to think, you're like, well, Mash just got all these coins, and He got them from his school, which only has 3 dorms, and he just beat the strongest members of the strongest dorm. So I suppose you could go back and retroactively say like the Orca dorm's, insanely important or something like that. But now we're kind of introduced to this idea that there's like captains and divisions and things like that. Rio Grant's is the Light Cane. He's, a forces captain. The Divine Visionaries are police keepers, basically. And it's kind of this interesting concept that now has come up where we might have to start moving away from the school a little bit to start almost becoming Black Clover, honestly. But it's, I don't know. I tweeted out at the moment, like last week after I read this chapter, I was like, God, I fucking love Mashle. And I'll be honest, this isn't even like the greatest chapter. We've seen Mash kind of do these things before, although I always enjoy just how over the top his responses are. But Mashle just makes me fucking happy in a way that I have trouble properly explaining. And this was just another one. It was just a chapter as I read it. I was like, I fucking love this series. Like how like Sakamoto made me like really angry. Like this is like the inverse. So I'm just like, this is why I read manga. There's stuff that I really, really enjoy like this that I really get to really, just embrace and love. So I really appreciated this chapter, even though it's maybe not the necessarily best chapter this week or anything like that. I just really enjoyed it.
It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Ayakashi Triangle. Chapter 22, The Gift of Constant Change. So I had sort of had the impression over the course of the last few chapters that maybe Sosuke would be like some sort of recurring villain character. Called that one wrong, it seems like. It seems, you never know. But so we see the result of him literally eating the wind jutsu that Matsuri shoved into his remote mouth thing, and his physical form is falling apart. Sosuke can't keep up his physical shape, and so he's like, no, Jin, you're a species that should surpass humans and Ayakashi. This can't happen. I must eat I must devour the ultimate meal. And he starts reaching out towards Suzu, who is crying as she looks at him. And Sosuke thinks to himself, you're so odd. After all I put you through, you should be happy that I'm dying. Why do you look like that? Why are you crying? That makes me lose my appetite, Miss Kanade. Now I understand. It's this here between you and me. It's the heart.
Yeah.
That's basically the moment that he has, but it's not nearly as played up. So. Shirogane is kind of watching things, and he realizes this girl can, sympathize with Ayakashi. She can see things from the Ayakashi's perspective. Suzu rushes into Matsuri's arms, and he kind of instinctively embraces her. And she says, I feel sorry for him and for the poor Ayakashi who got eaten, but I'm okay now. And she says, you know what? These are tears of joy. I'm happy that you're alive. And as Matsuri is looking down at her and he looks at her lips, he's just like, And Ninokuru says to fear the enemies that he and Po were up against. He rushes up to go and assist his friend, and he sees Matsuri and Suzu embracing. And Po's like, oh my gosh, Matsuri is back to being a boy, and they're having a moment. And then Ninokuru starts walking away, and Po is like, oh master. And Ninokuru's like, let's home, Ponosuke. I did my duty. I'm glad that Suzu Kanade is safe. But what is this falling down my cheeks? The girl that I like is with another dude. I must walk away coolly before I look pathetic. I do really like that moment. And I think that Ninokuru has gotten a lot more likable since he first showed up. So he leaves. Shirogane gets sick of Matsuri and Suzu being lovey-dovey with each other, and also the fact that Suzu is holding him while collapsing into Matsuri's chest means that he's squeezed between them. So he's like, stop cuddling! And by the way, just so you know, the gender swap awakened jutsu is only gone temporarily. You're still a far cry from a happy ending. So, of course, Suzu has to process Matsuri's going to turn to a girl again, which we kind of knew from the get-go. But, Shirogane explains the secret art has a lasting effect. The exact same amount of Ayakashi power that cast it is required to remove it, and Hinojiki devoured my power, so now it will be in effect forever. Um, and Shirogane seems to be of the impression that like that, big form of his is gone for good. It probably isn't, but it's basically going to be gone for a while. So he says that, yeah, when the sun sets, that'll be around the time that the effect of the jutsu will return. So you should at least enjoy the last moments of being a boy again. So Matsuri is like, hey, Suzu, can you come with me? I want to do something that I can only do as a guy. And Suzu is blushing. And so they start walking off into the woods. And Suzu's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And then Matsuri starts undressing. And Suzu's like, this is so embarrassing. But I'm going to do it. And she whips her jacket off. And then she looks over at Matsuri, who's gone under a waterfall to like meditate. And he's just like, yeah, I concentrate best when meditating under a waterfall and when I'm in my underwear. And Shirogane looks at Suzu and is like, why'd you take off your jacket? And Suzu says, I was getting warm.
I like it because oh god, I can't remember the manga's name right now. Yabuki. His like quote was like, I didn't think I would draw something like this and jump, but then I said, no, this is 100% what Suzu would do in this moment. And I was like, I love that. I like the idea of like, nah, she crazy thirsty for this guy, so she'd go for it.
I feel like getting those insights from Kentaro Yabuki really do make us appreciate this series a bit more. Just like, hey, his daughter's really into the series, and also he's just like, I don't know if I can get away with this. No, she's super thirsty for him. She would totally start shipping.
He's like, I don't know if I could draw a scene of this girl getting ready to have sex. It's like, nah, she thinks it's about sex. She's gonna go for it. Like, I mean, I just know her.
Suzu's reaction to how this goes out is just like, God, why does he have to meditate now? He does look really hot in that photo. I do really love Suzu. Just like, she knows what she's about.
She's into one thing exclusively. Oh, two. So, this and candy. That's like her two things.
So Shirogane is kind of observing Suzu's behavior some more, and then he says, hey, I've got a favor to ask Suzu. Matsuri is left to think to himself as he's meditating, and we basically get the insight of, yeah, he's here to meditate because he needs a cold shower right now. Because basically he realized when he was back in his male body, and Suzu was that close and being that affectionate towards him, he realized certain things about her that he hadn't realized about Suzu before, which gave him the urge to kiss her. And he's like, I wasn't like this before. I'd never felt that way before about her. It was more like she was someone who was just special to me. But after I became a girl, we spent time together and grew closer, and that let me get more familiar with her. And now I see her as Suzu, as a girl. Suzu gets Matsuri's attention, and Matsuri's like, why are you all the way over here? It's like, because fucking the waterfall's on you, so you didn't hear me, whatever. So she's like, hey, Shirogane asked me to become the king of Ayakashi. Matsuri's first reaction is, her t-shirt is wet. But then he reacts with, the king of Ayakashi, what does that mean? And Shirogane explains, in order to maintain order in the Ayakashi world, we need to avoid a situation where the king is absent. I don't really want to partner with humans, but Suzu would be able to stand in my place until I regain my powers. And maybe getting involved with Ayakashi would lead to drawing out her powers as an Ayakashi medium. And Suzu says, I want to try it. I feel like my powers have been getting stronger since we met Shirogane. And if I can draw out all of my skills as an Ayakashi medium, I might be able to return Shirogane's powers and get him to turn you back into a guy. You two saved me. Now it's my turn to save you two. And Matsuri's left to think about this, and he thinks, I used to think if Suzu gained more powers, I would feel like she'd be really far from me, somewhere beyond my reach. But now, I'm not as worried, because I see Suzu as a girl. And he says, I'll help you two. It's dangerous if you do it alone, so take this. And, but he says to himself, Grandpa, I realize it now. I'm in love with Suzu.
I really, really like the fact that, like, while this conversation's happening, she's just using her powers to kind of create these fish out of water,
Yeah.
and they're just swimming around her in this very ethereal and majestic scene. It really kind of helps to capture how kind of magical she seems and how she almost does kind of feel like this goddess, where she's creating this life around her, seemingly without any challenge to it. It's almost unconscious to her at this point. It's great for setting the scene.
And I mean, it's like reading this chapter is like, yeah, I see why Matsuri didn't love her before, but now he realizes he does. And it's a very logically laid out thing of like, hey, they've been through these things together. He's gotten closer to her because he had to be closer to her in order to protect her during all this stuff with Shirogane. And now that he's kind of had the shock of being back with, the bits that react to her, he has realized that, like, oh, I actually am in love with her. And while this is going on, we get this big development of, oh, Suzu is going to have this very important place in the Ayakashi world, at least temporarily. So it feels like a bunch of big steps have been taken forward in this chapter. Anyway, after that, Suzu sees his junk and then his pussy. So
it's so shameless. She doesn't even really. She just kind of loses her footing in the water. And
I need to grab something. This'll do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he did establish it was the only clothes he's wearing, so just pulls it down and immediately catches an eye full of both. Just like,
because he turns back right as she's pulled the fundoshi down, so she sees one, and then the sun goes down, and Matsuri changes back, and so she sees the other, and it's just like, okay, yeah, and immediately we're back to, like, dumb jokes with Shirogane being like, "You're so scandalous," and Suzu's like, "I had water in my eyes, I couldn't see it," and Matsuri's like, "She saw both of them." It's like,
oh, poor Matsuri. Oh, and then fucking art dude's just like, "Oh, ho, ho, very funny."
Yeah, basically. It's so weird because it's like, this is such a good chapter through 20 pages, and then the last two is just like, by the way, Kentaro Yabuki's writing this series.
By the way, we do still have a horny quotient to fill, so I'm sorry, but we do have to address this. I really enjoyed the chapter. I thought this was a cool new direction. We were kind of worried before, like, I wonder if they changed the status quo, and it's like, no, we're not. In fact, if anything, this reinforces the status quo. But I also enjoy that this is kind of a romance series that, 20 chapters in, both leads have become very aware of the fact that they have these feelings.
Yeah,
and I think that
we've seen the way those feelings have changed too. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. So,
yeah. And I do think that there is a veteran presence in this series with Yabuki that really is noticeable in this series. There's a lot of very sharp sort of executions and details that make this series feel very memorable and Jump right now. So I actually been enjoying it like a lot these past couple weeks.
Yeah, this whole arc that's involved that's involved Sosuke was very strong from start to finish. And I mean, like, it's gotten to a point where now it's like, hey, there's this story that I'm actually pretty invested in, and there's these characters that I've grown to like. So, it's just it's one of those series that's like, this is actually good, but it's going to be very difficult to recommend it to anyone.
Yes, it's impossible. It is impossible.
Unless there's a very particular crowd, but
Yeah.
So.
Look, we all know we can recommend it to Steve, man. Let's not even try to lie. All right.
And clearly a lot of people who listen to our show, but
all right. So let's talk, Nick, about Black Clover now, page 272. Is there a chapter?
Prison Hunting Ground.
Where the hell is the chapter title?
It's on the cover page.
Oh, right. There's a color page this week. That's why, yeah. Page 277, Dark Prison Hunting Ground. That's actually a pretty cool color page as well. Like it. So we opened with Yuno, who is training, shooting Rasen guns at a cliff wall, when Langris comes out and is just like, hey there, and throws the appropriate shade of like, oh, it's former Vice Captain Langris. He's like, fuck you. Fuck you, first off. Unnecessary. And he's like, oh, hey, where's your stupid little noisy fairy? And Yuno's like, she's holed up in my grimoire right now. She thinks she's figured out a way to defeat Xenon. He thinks this to himself. He doesn't say this out loud. I think I've worked out a way to do it, but that said, I can't confirm how effective it'll be. And he's just like, why are you here? And Langris is just like, look, I thought you needed an opponent who had spatial magic, and since I'm already here, I shall help you train. Yuno's like, I don't really want your help, but this is a Golden Dawn's problem, and you've gotten stronger, right? So in that case, yeah, do help me. And Langris like, all right, fuck you. Again, don't know why I had to throw that in there, but all right, let's see if you've gotten any more agreeable. So
I love that. Yeah, Yuno takes the approach of like, I would prefer that I didn't have to deal with you, but I guess you'll be helpful. So sure.
He's like, I didn't know why you didn't need to throw all those modifiers in there. You could have just said yes. I don't. We cut back to the training.
Relying on someone who is a disgrace to the guild would kind of besmirch my reputation, but I suppose that I can tell you, all right, yes, thank you would have been okay.
I didn't need to thank you, just none of the unnecessary dissing would have been really appreciated. I'm in a pretty low point right now. We cut back to Asta and Sabretooth, who are losing yet again. They've lost yet another spar against Nature Boy Ric Flair. And Asta is just like, wow, he's really tough. No matter how many times we try to fight him, we can't figure it out. And we're probably, he's probably not even fighting for real. This is the real power of Double Union. So they have a basket full.
Chris, he summoned all these dogs, and that's what happens, In the big yard, we're in the yard. And he's the big dog that runs that yard.
Do you ever think Undertaker was just like, man, I wish I could have gotten one more WrestleMania match in so I didn't end on the fucking American Badass Taker?
No, because he was very happy with how that went down somehow. So
that is objectively the worst Taker that's out there. Fucking American Badass Undertaker.
No, there's a worse. There's when he was already American Badass, he just wasn't called it yet, and it was very bad because he was talking about riding bikes with Big Show into the desert and leaving him there. So
yeah, I mean, the entire biker Taker phase is a bad part.
You're including that in American Badass. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Asta. Yeah, Ric Flair. Asta crawls over to the basket of sensu bean cookies, has a couple of them, fills them back up with strength. And he's like, hey, wait a minute. I've got a really good idea. And Sabretooth has...
The way this reaction goes down. It's so perfectly... Because he describes Asta perfectly in this one sentence.
Sabretooth says, when he gets like this, about 10% of the time, his idea is sheer genius. And Asta just goes, combine! And has Sabretooth on his shoulders. And Sabretooth's like, the other 90% of the time, it's crap. And that's exactly what it is. He's like, if you ride on my shoulders, we'll be stronger. So, Nature Boy is just thinking, he's like, God, what's up with this, And he has a flashback to somebody being like, hey, does it being such a goody-goody get tiring? And Nature Boy's like, what are you talking about, brother? Doesn't doing your own thing get tiring? Moron. What's tiring about being free? And we cut back to the present, and interesting, we haven't heard mention of a brother yet from Nature Boy Ric Flair, so maybe this would explain his sudden shift in personality from that point in time. So he just says, it's about time to meet up with the rest. And I was like, oh shit, it's already been 2 days? He's like, well, no choice then. If it's not going to work, then die here. Mana Zone, dark prison hunting ground. And it's suddenly pitch black, and Asta gets socked right in the face. And he's like, holy shit, I can't sense their ki at all. There's no way for me to dodge their attacks in here. Nature Boy Ric Flair's just like, all right, you did have potential. It's quite a shame. Keep slashing them and There's this whole death is creeping on me. This is true terror. I can't see anything. Our backs are against the
Death is
wall.
creeping upon me from the darkness, and I can't sense a thing. This is true terror.
Yeah, it is a great metal song. And they just both in unison think, why can't we unite? If I'm going to save Captain Yami, and if I'm going to avenge the Sita, I can't die, and thus I can't let this guy die either. And that, tandem spirit of I now rely on this person to get stronger seems to unlock something. And there's a glowing light in this dark prison of darkness, and we just see a single eye with a star-shaped mark in the middle of it at the end of the chapter.
It's a relatively, I mean, like, the moment itself is pretty well executed. Mm-hmm. It does not seem to actually have been built up to in the previous chapters we've seen with the two of them working together. And that's just kind of always been the problem with Black Clovers. Like, the pacing doesn't always sometimes leave something to be desired.
Yeah.
I do like Asta and Lieb having this thing going together, but it feels like we needed to actually see a little bit more of the combat training with Nacht in order to see the payoff here. Because it's just kind of like, they were training, it wasn't working. They realized they need to rely on each other, when we never really had the impression that they didn't understand that after Asta formed the partnership with him. But
yeah,
oh well, we're here now. We'll see how cool the power up form is.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of excited just to see the power up. I think it was a good idea not to put it in this chapter. Give us some time to kind of like savor it and get excited for like the new reveal form when we finally see it. Should be pretty exciting.
Let's move on to One Piece.
All my friends are here. There they go now.
There they go.
By the way, has One Piece's logo on chapter title pages always been One Piece, One Piece?
I don't know. I'm not going to bother checking back.
I feel like it has been, but I just only noticed it right now, and it makes me laugh.
It is a bit like... Look, it's a very confusing title if you do, with the anchor and the Luffy and the...
What's Napak, Jack?
Napik! So, chapter 996, Island of the Strongest. Last chapter ended with Otama showing up to save Nami's ass from page 1 caving her skull in with a headbutt. And they are riding away on her dog lion mount thing, while Ulti basically just goes, "Ow! Go kill it, Pei." And page 1's like, "Why me? You do it." It's like, fucking do it yourself.
God damn it.
Usopp's not doing so well. Cracked skull will do that, I guess.
Nami's the greatest fucking exchange, too.
She's like, "Usopp, are you alright?" No, of course not. You're not alright. But let's focus on the positive. I'm fine.
It's such a great Nami line. Usopp, are you okay? Alright, clearly not. But let's re-establish how we view this scene. I'm okay.
Would have been great if you could have just said that. But now you can be happy for me for not having a skull that was head-butted by a Pachycephalosaurus devil-fruited person. She asked Otama how the hell they got there, which is a good question. And Tama says, "We got to ride on the enemy ship," which Nami's surprised to hear. There is a baboon that's fighting with page 1 now. And, of course, that's one of Tama's other animal friends. Nami is worried, however, that guy is not going to be enough to hold off, page 1 and Ulti. But Tama says, "Don't belittle his power, Onami. We came here as samurai." All right, nice sentiment, I guess. She's 6. She's allowed to.
Yeah.
She's allowed to, anyway. We cut over to Yamato, who's still trying to fight off the armored division. He's having a tough go of it, because clearly he's stronger than all of them, but he has to keep on going back to defend Shinobu and Momonosuke, so he can't just fight freely. So he keeps on just kind of like going back to deflect their blows, as in walking back over to where the shots are going towards Shinobu and just eating them instead. I mean, it would probably be better if you would like hit them back, but whatever. He's doing fine. He's just kind of smoky right now. Shinobu's like, if you're a samurai, make up your mind, abandon me and save Lord Momonosuke. And Yamato says, no, Kozuki Oden would never do that. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So he'd save everyone because that's weird. Yeah. The leader of the armored division, whose name I know, but I'm choosing not to say right now.
Rhymes with Rocky. Now you know.
So Zaraki.
Yep, it's pretty much it.
It's like, you can't protect deadweight and still defeat me. It's an insult that you think that way. I can't go losing my superb armored division. So Zaraki, whose name is definitely not Sasaki, takes out his sword and is about to attack Yamato with it when Frankie comes running towards them.
Well, to just interrupt real quick. No, it is. Before that happens, we see Yamato saying Sasaki as Sasaki draws the sword, and then there's a close-up on Yamato's mouth, and he has fangs. And Sasaki has a moment where he just has like what? Yeah. So we don't know what that means to this point. Does Yamato have a double fruit maybe? Maybe a dragon fruit as well or something like that? But it is interesting that we see that little tease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't catch that because One Piece pages are thick with detail.
I didn't catch it the first time. I thought that was Sasaki, who we've seen has sharp teeth. So I assumed it was the first time.
Yeah, but Sasaki's teeth go up, and the fangs go down in that shot. Yeah, Frankie in the Frankie Tank thing is running away from Hacha the Giant, and someone's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And Yamato's like, "Oh, I knew who that is. That's Luffy's companion, Frankie the Cyborg. I've never seen anyone like him in my life." Hacha the Giant tries to attack Frankie, and Frankie realizes what's going to happen because he's like, just because you can't catch me doesn't mean you should do that. And he's like, he knows, like, this is not going to hit me, but it is going to cave in the floor under me, which it does. So, giant hole in the floor happens, which sends Shinobu and Yamato and Momonosuke plummeting downward, along with Frankie and several members, at least, of the armored division. Yamato calls over to Frankie, who, of course, has no idea who he is, and is like, "Frankie the Cyborg, take care of this. Luffy put me in charge of these two." And Frankie's like, "All right, sure thing, whoever you are."
Sure thing, person.
And then Yamato, as he's getting ready to just kind of like pass off Shinobu and Momonosuke and to Frankie, is just like, "Oh, I have to thank him. Just a moment. I can take out that one," and just does something. Swings his mace, which sends this shockwave of some sort lancing up through the hole, and it hits Hacha in the chin, and he goes down. And Frankie's like, "How the hell do you do that?" And Hacha falls on some people, I believe. So
yes. So it looks like we had a fight switch already. It looks like it'll be Frankie going up against Sasaki.
Yes.
Which does make sense if we establish that Sasaki is the leader of the armored division, then
true. Yamato runs off. He's got Shinobu under one arm and Momonosuke under the other. And he says to Momonosuke, "You must survive. It is imperative that you survive because you are the one who must guide the world to the dawn." Then we cut over to Law, who is fighting his way through a couple guards, and he makes his way onto the second basement floor where there is a poneglyph. And he recalls some stuff that Koro-san had told him. And he then recalls having a conversation with Robin about what his real name is, Trafalgar D. Water Law. And Robin's like, "Oh, so you have the name of D too?" And Law's like, "Yeah, you're the only one I'm going to tell this to." And Robin's like, "Well, okay, I mean, I'm glad you trust me, but I don't really have the answers for you. Luffy may not care, but I find the D name to be fascinating. So she says she has told him that the only way for him is to follow the red poneglyphs, which means being the four emperors. And so Law comes up to a poneglyph and is like, no, it's not this one. I need a red one. And he says just to himself, Korra, I've made up my mind. I want to know the meaning of this checkered fate.
Yep. Very interesting. It's cool. This has been, a thing. He wasn't really looking into it, but now he has this conviction to follow the story of the poneglyphs now.
Cut to another place, to the third floor. We see Kid running with Killer.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just running through people and just sucking up all their weapons into this massive wave of scrap metal. He's got like all the metal in the castle trailing behind him now. And he's like, you think this is enough, Killer? And Killer's like, well, that's a good question. Our enemy is the world's strongest pirate, so you can't have too much. And Kid's like, yeah, good point. We cut to the roof. Things have not gone well for the Scabbards. Kaido's done a lot better now that he's made it smaller.
I'm starting to think that they're not going to win, Nick.
He's doing a lot better now that his body's smaller and there's not as much for them to wail on. He's just knocking them all over. And we just see one page of him kicking ass, and then that's it. We cut away to somewhere else. To the Skull Dome on the performance floor, Big Mom has made her way over to where everyone's chasing around Apu for, the frost disease thing.
The Isoni disease or whatever, yeah.
But Big Mom says, everyone kind of looks worried for a second. Don't worry, I'm only interested in going up top where Kaido is.
What a great moment. Everyone's like, oh my god, Big Mom. And then she just fucking flies through the scene. She's like, nope, don't have time for all of you.
Bye. And then finally we cut over to the second floor as Luffy is making his way with Jinbei and Sanji up through the tower. He's trying to make his way up to the roof where Kinemon is. And then Sanji says, hey, do you guys hear that? And they're like, can't you hear it from the third floor? And they're like, hear what? And so from the first time I read this chapter, Chris, I was like, I'm going to need to ask Chris what the fuck this means. So we just hear a memory from Sanji's perspective of stomp, tromp, stomp, tromp. Come, my dear, that's it. Nwehehehe. But my lord, you mustn't. It would be so naughty. And Sanji is like, ugh. So
the assumption I have would be that it would be Black Maria. Because we know at one point Sanji thought he was going off to where Black Maria was. This is like back before they started encountering other people, and we don't really know where her whereabouts are right now. So it would seem to make sense Sanji zeroing in on her. I don't know enough about her character though to know if any of that is true to who she is. Because we haven't heard or seen a ton of her. So I also don't know I don't know who she would be referring to as my lord, unless that's where Orochi is for some reason, like he's still alive or something. It's kind of tough to say.
People in the chat are indicating it could have been part of her performance.
It could have been. It also
since a lot of those are one person performances, so they have to. So like if someone's putting on like a play, they play multiple parts.
Mm-hmm. It very well could be. There's definitely something going on there, and I'm not 100% certain about it. I know that there were some people in the Discord earlier who were really confused because there's a lot of things happening right now in One Piece, it's difficult to know where most of them are. So the main key details is Kaido's on the roof with the rest of the Scabbards, and he's pretty much defeated them at this point. That's also where Cat Viper and Dogstorm are in their Sulong forms. I don't know how much longer that's going to last. The third floor is where Kid and Killer are. They're leaving the third floor. Whatever Sanji's hearing is on the 3rd floor. Jinbei, Luffy, and Sanji are on the 2nd floor, heading up to the 3rd floor. And then basically everyone else is on the 1st floor, or ground floor, so to speak. But they're in wildly...
Trying not to die, right.
And they're all in wildly different areas. Like, Frankie is on the 1st floor. Nami and Usopp are on the 1st floor. Zoro, Chopper, and Robin are on the 1st floor. None of those characters are with each other, basically. Law is in the 2nd basement, and then Yamato fell into the basement, but we don't know. There's 2 levels, it seems, of the basement. So yes. I don't know if they fell all the way straight down to the bottom, or if they fell into that. As for villains, we know Queen is watching the Ice Oni thing from like a platform on the 1st floor. I don't know if it counts that they're on a higher floor or not. We don't know where King is. Presumably he's on a higher floor, but we're not sure. We don't know where Who's Who is. We don't know where Hawkins is. And I don't think we know where Black Maria is, but I could be wrong about some of those other details. It is very difficult to remember where everybody is. Presumably most of these will only actually be relevant when they show up. But yeah, it's kind of a mess at the moment. So yeah, I that's why in my mind I would be like, I would assume it would be Black Maria that Sanji's hearing. But as I said, what she's saying doesn't necessarily line up with what I remember about her character. So, I mean, who knows? She could have a flying devil fruit. I mean, there's only 5 in existence, but she could have one had flown up here. She was like on the ground floor before, but at this point, who knows? There is a map, but unfortunately, there are too many fucking characters to actually put on the map so you could keep them all in track. If Oda drew like a little, like the devil bats would sometimes draw like little faces to show where everybody was on the field and shit like that, he can't do that because there's like there's 60 characters in this fucking like situation, so you can't keep track of all of them.
All right.
Let's Good chapter.
Things up for this week. Chris, what was your favorite series? Who is your MVP?
God damn, I'm sorry. I just looked at what the audience picked. Favorite of the week, I'm going to give to... Fuck. I think I might give it to Ayakashi Triangle. I don't want to. No, I don't want to give it to Ayakashi Triangle. I'll have Suzu as my character of the week, but chapter of the week, I guess I give it to Mashle, even though it wasn't the strongest chapter this week. I think it's probably the one I guess I like the most. You know what? Actually, I might change that. I think it's Eden Zero now that I say it out loud. Because I'm thinking of all the chat. Nah, fuck it. I'm going with Mashle. What was that? That was crazy talk for a moment. I'm sorry, guys.
Ninja X3i with his hand over the buttons. I am going to go with Ayakashi Triangle myself.
Okay.
I understand why you don't want to. It's like those last 2 pages. Like you read through the chapter and you're like, wow, what a great chapter. And then you turn the page to the last bit and you're like, oh. But this was not a particularly strong week of individual chapters, and that I felt was, except for the ending, an exceptionally good one. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I can pick that one and only feel a little bit bad about it. So. Yeah.
It made me laugh because I was looking over our results. I was like, why did I pick the mobile lab last week? And I was like, oh, right.
Do you really believe it was a crew member, Chris? Because I don't know if you do.
It is, man. Well, I had to remember. I was like, who's mobile lab? Is that not a Mashle character?
It's like a quiz we could have at the end of the year. Was this an invention in Dr. Stone or a minor character in Mashle?
Well, it's called motorbike, but that could be either.
Rubber tire. I mean, come on.
It sounds like it would be an invention, but it sounds like a pretty good Mashle name too.
Steam drill. God. So, My character of the week. Oh, all right. Hang on, I'm going through this real quick. I'm gonna go with Ryo, from
Okay.
Mashle. Uh, he made what I felt was actually a pretty strong impression, and I like how he's not really an ally to MASH, but he has a worldview that's extreme enough that he's like, I'll give this guy a chance to prove himself by doing something that's basically impossible. And since MASH regularly does impossible things, it's like, well, that worked out for him. Yeah. And you could tell afterwards, it's like, maybe he doesn't seem to actually really care about MASH's agenda or him being punished. He's just like, oh, this guy's interesting.
Yeah.
And so I like that. And I also did think that it was cool to go from easygoing to imposing back to easygoing.
Yeah. So. All he needs is squinty snake eyes. Need be the perfect who can he really trust this character. Yeah. The audience picked fucking Sakamoto Days as their chapter of the week because they have no taste. And then they almost got it right for character of the week because it's Suzu, but then it fucking tied with Sakamoto. So I don't know. I guess everybody fucking loves the fucking fat, quiet character. That was really what enchanted them this week. So there was a tie. Every fucking Thanksgiving.
So you did go with Suzu for...
Yeah, I went with Suzu for my character.
All right. Definitely I grok that. Yeah.
No, everyone enjoyed it. I'm very happy for them.
All right.
They're wrong, but I'm happy for them.
That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. Thank you guys for joining us. We record the show Wednesdays in the evening around 7 to 8 Eastern Time. However, you can stay updated on exactly when we start the show by checking us out, on Twitter. That's at WMR Podcast for the official podcast account. Your hosts are at RoloT and at Nick F. Time. And record it right here, twitch.tv/RoloT. We also use the WMR Discord to send out an update when we start the show, and that's just a great place to come in, hang out, talk about the manga recommendations as we're reading through them, the chapters as they come out on usually Sundays, generates a lot of discussion, and also we have a community Among Us games on Saturdays. It's been a regular thing for the last several weeks.
Which theoretically, I may get to do more of this week since I may have to cancel all my D&D stuffs after this one.
Okay.
I've already kind of preemptively canceled it. I have no idea how busy Black Friday is going to be because the weeks leading up to it have been suspiciously quiet. So it might mean that people are smart and aren't going to come out for it, but I don't have a ton of faith in that.
We want to give special thanks to people who support us on Patreon. We create bonus content for you guys to enjoy on there. And to people who help us make the show what it is, Ninja XDRI maintains the Google Doc that lets us keep track of a whole bunch of statistics associated with the show. We're coming up on the end of the year, and if you want to vote on year-end supplemental awards and stuff like that, you can check that out on the WMR Discord. We also want to thank our target artist, Steve Mann, Infamous Planet, for creating the frameworks for the visual edition of the podcast, and Milo Jack Stillitz and Winsdale Cheddar for creating the opening sequence for Weekly Manga Recap. Mm-hmm. So, time has come to name my recommendation that we're going over. So, Chris, we're not really sure for certain if We Never Learn is going to end, but we do know that it is probably ending sometime soon. So I felt that it would be a good opportunity for us to do a comparative study. Why not? And go over a series that also features a harem with 5 love interests, which is why I have chosen the quintessential quintuplets for us to go over. According to the recommendation that has been dropped in the Google Doc, apparently, it's not actually very similar at all to We Never Learn. So we'll see how that holds up.
Okay. There we go, I guess.
Quintessential quintuplets. That's the manga we're going to talk about.
All right. That's what we're going to be talking about then. Next time. Or several weeks from now.
Probably
who knows?
A few weeks from now. It's over 100 chapters.
So coming up sometime soon on Weekly Manga Recap. Dun 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 dun.
What? Why
No.
did you?
Like the Terminator sound effect in there. I don't know why. Because we can? Who's going to stop us? Fucking James Cameron? He's in a fucking, like a bathysphere at the fucking bottom of the ocean. Fuck, we'll never know. Yeah, probably. Probably fucking penning out Avatars 17, 18, and 19 that no one wants to watch.
There were 15 other avatars.
I think they're planned.
How long have I been sleeping?
Nick, our world's made of chrome.
It is?